Chapter 6:26. The two of them left the territory of the Emperor's Sky Divine Palace and turned into two rays of light, heading towards the west. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was extremely famous in the Yunfeng domain. It was one of the most famous forces besides the Emperor's Sky Divine Palace. This force mainly focused on alchemy. They were very famous for their alchemy skills, and the elixirs that they refined were highly sought after. Most importantly, the reputation of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was very good. Every month, the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution would open its doors. Martial artists who liked alchemy could enter the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution and study there for 3 months. During these 3 months, the alchemy experts of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution would impart their experience and skills. All of this was free of charge. It was also because of this that the Cloud Sea Pill Institution was able to survive under the influence of the other overlords. Moreover, they were living a comfortable life, and their strength was getting stronger and stronger. Their goal was to go to the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution and seize one of their treasures, the heavenly demon fruit. Cough, cough. It doesn't seem right for us to seize other people's treasures for no reason. On the way, Lu Ming coughed a few times. Lu Ming was quite principled. Unless it was an enemy, he wouldn't seize other people's treasures for no reason. Moreover, this force had a good reputation. I'm getting rid of evil for the people. Do you really think that the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution is as good as the rumors say? Those are just tricks that the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution use to deceive the world. I've already investigated it. The things that the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution does in the dark are infuriating and outrageous. Xian Yinqing said as a cold light flashed in his eyes. What do you mean? Lu Ming asked. Come with me. I'll bring you to have a look. Xian Yinqing said. The two of them flew for a few days. They had already reached the territory of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. The two of them landed in the mountain range and walked forward. There was a small town in front of them. Most of the people living there were ordinary people, but there were a few low-level martial artists. The two of them strolled around the town. How is it? Did you see anything? Xian Yinqing asked. Lu Ming swept his gaze across, his frown deepening. The people in this town are very strange. Most of them have low blood and qi, especially the children. Lu Ming said, That's right. Do you know why? Xian Yinqing asked. There was a flash of light in Lu Ming's eyes. During this period of time, he had made great progress in his inscription Dao. Naturally, his judgment was different. He thought of one possibility. Before Lu Ming could say anything, Xian Yinqing had already explained. That's because the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution often come here and secretly extract the innate blood and qi of the babies. When the babies are born, the qi of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution isn't heavy. The innate blood and qi are the most useful. They use the innate blood and qi to refine pills. This causes the babies whose innate blood and qi of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution to grow up with insufficient qi of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. However, for the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, living to the age of 30 is already enough because they have already married and had children. Their children will also end up in the same situation. Perhaps, in the eyes of the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, ordinary people are just some animals that they have raised. Perhaps, in the eyes of the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, these people are just some human-shaped elixirs. Livestock? Human-shaped elixirs? Lu Ming's heart trembled. A cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. If that was the case, then the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution were simply a bunch of greedy demons. It's not just this small town. Within 1,000,000 miles of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, all the small towns and villages that are slightly more remote are in a similar situation. Most of these villagers are ordinary people. The strongest are only martial warrior level martialists who have never traveled too far in their lives. They still think that a person's lifespan is around 30 years old. Xie Nianqing smiled coldly. Lu Ming's face was gloomy. These people could obviously live to 80 or 90 years old. However, their innate blood and qi of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution had been extracted when they were babies. Their lifespan was greatly reduced, and they thought that they could only live to 30 years old. How sad was that? The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution is doing far more than this. They use the blood and qi of the babies to refine pills and then sell them at a high price to martial artists in the chaotic astral ocean who practice evil cultivation techniques. They make a huge profit. Xie Nianqing explained. It seemed that he had investigated the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution very thoroughly. Let's go. I'd like to meet the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. The killing intent in Lu Ming's eyes had disappeared. However, his tone was extremely cold. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was located on a majestic mountain range. The place was grand and majestic. Spiritual qi was dense, and it was as beautiful as a fairyland. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was actually a family called the Yun family, because they often opened their doors and imparted alchemy techniques to others. It was called the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. It was said that the head of the Yun family was a sea of Soul Realm Almighty. Lu Ming and Xie Nianqing naturally couldn't just kill their way in. They planned to sneak in and check out the situation first. Over the past few days, the Cloud Sea City in front of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution had become lively. This was because the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution opened their doors every month to impart alchemy techniques. Martial artists from all over the Cloud Peak region who were interested in alchemy gathered there. There were even people from other regions. The two of them came at the right time. Tomorrow was the day when the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution opened their doors. The two of them strolled around the city. Along the way, they attracted the attention of passers-by. It was mainly because of Xie Nianqing's beauty. Such a peerless beauty was rare in the world. Miss, are you going to enter the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution to learn alchemy as well? A handsome young man with a slender figure walked over and asked with a smile. His eyes were fixed on Xie Nianqing, revealing a trace of passion. Xie Nianqing glanced at him with a cold expression and didn't answer. Miss, I'm Gu Huaxiu, the young master of the Gu family. This should be your first time in Cloud Sea City, right? If you don't mind, I'm willing to show you around the city. The young man continued and reported his family background. His eyes were fixed on Xie Nianqing. As for Lu Ming, he directly ignored him. Get lost! Xie Nianqing frowned and spat out coldly. Gu Huaxiu's face instantly darkened. Xie Nianqing actually told him to get lost? No woman had ever dared to speak to him like that. Gu Huaxiu flicked his sleeve and strode away. Before he left, he glanced at Lu Ming with killing intent. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. He was completely speechless. He hadn't even said a word and was directly implicated. However, he knew Xie Nianqing. When the young man came over to greet them, he knew that this would be the outcome. The two of them continued to stroll around for a while and found a restaurant to have a meal. After that, they found an inn to rest in. The next day, it was time for the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution to open their doors. Lu Ming and Xie Nianqing left Cloud Sea City and headed to the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. It was very simple to enter the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. All they had to do was fill in the basic information and they could enter. Chapter 6, 27. Everyone, from now on, you will be studying alchemy in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution for 3 months. All of you should have some foundation in alchemy. At that time, there will be teachers with profound alchemy skills in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution who will explain to you. Of course, you can also interact with the teachers. A skinny middle-aged man appeared in front of the crowd and introduced them loudly. It's still early. Let me show you around the front yard of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. There are some finished pills there. You can learn from each other. the middle-aged man said. Then he led the crowd to the back. The crowd followed closely behind. Lu Ming looked around and realized that there were a few hundred of them. There were men and women, old and young. They came from all over the place. The crowd followed the middle-aged man around and toward the front yard. The front yard was huge. It was made up of several huge mountains. There were palaces and pavilions everywhere. They could vaguely smell the fragrance of herbs. In some places, there were even herbal fields where various spiritual herbs were planted. These herbal fields were guarded by specialized people. These people were either skilled in the water essence or the wood essence. They were the most suitable for cultivating spiritual herbs. Lu Ming, there should be an assessment later. It will test your alchemy skills. Can you do it? Xian Yinqing asked in a low voice. I should be able to. Lu Ming said. In the path of inscription, there were different preferences. There were several major branches. For example, there were those who preferred crafting weapons, those who preferred alchemy, and those who preferred inscription formations. However, they all had one thing in common, which was that they needed to use spiritual fire and inscriptions. During this period, Lu Ming's inscriptions were no longer a problem. The number of level 1 to level 3 inscriptions that he had mastered was enough to make those old monsters who had studied inscriptions for hundreds or thousands of years blush with shame. Alchemy not only required inscriptions, but also the identification of spiritual herbs and the knowledge of the prescription. In the past 2 months, Lu Ming had learned from Dandan about a dozen of the most common alchemy methods. He had also tried to refine them when he had the time. His skills were not bad. As long as the test was not too difficult, Lu Ming believed that he could do it. Really? Xian Yinqing was skeptical. In her impression, Lu Ming was a pure martial artist. He didn't practice the art of inscription. Have you ignited your spiritual fire? Xian Yinqing asked. Yes, a few months ago. Lu Ming answered honestly. Only a few months. Xian Yinqing pursed his lips. However, the good thing was that even if he failed in alchemy later, he wouldn't be chased out. He could still stay and learn. It was just that the treatment would be different. The group passed by a small bridge and flowing water, passing by pavilions, terraces, and pavilions. Following the middle-aged man, they arrived at a large hall. As soon as everyone arrived at the main hall, they smelled the medicinal fragrance. In the main hall, there were shelves. On the shelves, there were small jade boxes with pills placed on them. These elixirs were refined by the disciples of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. You can take a look and verify your own alchemy skills. The middle-aged man said. Everyone looked around casually in the main hall. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing also looked at the side. The elixirs here were from level 1 to level 4. Each of them was full in color, round, and had a medicinal fragrance that made people feel comfortable. On the surface of many elixirs, there were fine inscriptions inscribed on them. They looked very beautiful. Golden Crow Pill, Energy Nurturing Pill, Wood Returning Pill. Lu Ming saw at least dozens of different elixirs. These elixirs are full in color and have high purity. It's a pity that the inscriptions are still a little lacking. So the fusion of the spiritual herbs hasn't reached a perfect level. The medicinal effects are also a little lacking. Lu Ming picked up an energy nurturing pill and looked at it. He whispered as he looked, "This is still lacking? Is it true?" Xian Yinqing was speechless. Lu Ming had only been in contact with the path of inscription for a few months. Could he really tell the difference between the quality of the elixirs? Humph, what a boastful man. Most of these elixirs were refined by the elite disciples of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Each of them is full in color, and the inscriptions are very profound. Each of these elixirs is of high quality. Even if I were to refine them, they would only be slightly better. What do you know? A sarcastic voice was heard. Lu Ming looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man in a blue robe sneering at him. The young man in a blue robe was Gu Huaxiu, who had tried to hit on Xian Yinqing the day before, but was rejected. After he finished speaking, Gu Huaxiu turned to look at Xian Yinqing and said, "Miss, this friend of yours is really nothing much. He's all talk and no real ability. Miss, I advise you to keep your distance from him as soon as possible." Xian Yinqing glanced at Gu Huaxiu casually and said indifferently, "What does it have to do with you, who I'm with?" "Humph, you really don't know what's good for you. A fresh flower stuck in cow dung." Gu Huaxiu snorted coldly and walked to the other side. Lu Ming was speechless. This old man was really crazy. Everyone watched for a while in the hall. About half an hour later, the middle-aged man said, "All right, it's about time. Follow me." Everyone followed the middle-aged man to a square. "Look, Miss Yun Haitang is here." At this moment, someone pointed at the sky and shouted. Lu Ming looked toward the sky. In the sky, 3 figures were flying toward them. In the middle was a young woman. This woman looked to be in her 20s and was extremely beautiful. She was wearing a tight-fitting red gauze dress that accentuated her impressive figure in a soul-stirring manner. She was a stunning beauty. Most men would be tempted when they saw her. Beside this woman stood 2 old men. These 2 old men emitted powerful auras. Greater Success King. Lu Ming's eyes moved. He could see that the 2 old men were both in the Greater Success King realm. However, among the 3 of them, the young woman was clearly the leader. The 3 of them landed on the square, causing a commotion in the crowd. Most of the men, regardless of age, stared at Yun Haitang with fiery gazes. "I didn't expect Miss Yun Haitang to personally receive us this time. Could it be that she's going to exchange alchemy with us this time? That's great." It's said that Miss Yun Haitang is not only the #1 beauty of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, but she's also the most skilled alchemist among the younger generation. Her alchemy attainments are extremely profound, surpassing many of the older generation. This time, this old man will have to ask for advice. "Hey, I think you're just pretending to ask for advice. You want to use this opportunity to get close to Miss Yun Haitang, right? You're already so old, but you still don't have any self-respect. So what if I'm old? I can still have my spring when I'm old." The scene was noisy. These stinky men. At the scene, some of the women looked at the men with disdain. "What do you think? Isn't she very beautiful?" On the side, Xian Yinqing looked at Lu Ming and asked. "Yes, she's very beautiful." Lu Ming smiled. "Humph." Xian Yinqing's mouth began to curl up. "However, she's still far from being comparable to you." Chapter 6:28. Xian Yinqing's face reddened as a faint smile appeared on her face. "However, if she's really in charge of leading us this time, we can start with her." Xian Yinqing continued. "Oh, what do you mean?" Lu Ming was curious. The 2 of them spoke through voice transmission, so no one else could hear them. "I've heard that some of the important treasures of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution are hidden in an underground cave behind the mountain. However, the underground cave is filled with inscription arrays. Only the inscription tokens refined by the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution can enter. There are only 10 such tokens in the entire Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, and all of them are in the possession of the important figures of the institution. Most of the important figures are in seclusion, and we can't find them. However, as far as I know, Yun Haitang has an inscription token. As long as we get the token, we can sneak into the treasury of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution and take the heavenly demon fruit. Of course, it's not bad to take some other treasures along the way." Xian Yinqing smiled and transmitted his voice to Lu Ming. "Oh." Lu Ming nodded and thought about how to get the inscription token. "Be quiet." Yun Haitang spoke. Her voice was so sweet that it could seep into one's heart. For men, it was definitely a great weapon. Sure enough, many people's eyes were burning with passion. This included Gu Huaxiu. The fire in his eyes seemed to be able to burn Yun Haitang. "This time you'll have 3 months of learning, and I will be in charge of you. Yun Haitang opened her mouth and continued, "Of course, I also know that some of you are very skilled in alchemy. You might even surpass me. Therefore, I don't dare to say that I will teach you. In the future, we can exchange alchemy knowledge and improve together. This is the most important thing." Yun Haitang smiled and spoke very politely. "Miss Haitang, you're too humble. Everyone in the Yunfeng domain knows about your alchemy skills. I hope to have more exchanges with you in the future. Miss Haitang, I am the successor of the Lu family. I hope you can give me some pointers." "Miss Haitang, I am—" Some young men with extraordinary backgrounds introduced themselves one after another, hoping to attract Yun Haitang's attention. However, Yun Haitang only nodded with a smile and did not say much. After a while, Yun Haitang opened her mouth again and said, "Okay, according to the rules, there will be an alchemy assessment. There's no other meaning. I just want to see your alchemy level and what you're good at. It will be more effective for future exchanges. Does anyone have any objections?" "No, of course," everyone shouted. Some of them had even begun to rub their fists in preparation to perform well and attract Yun Haitang's attention. These trash actually want to attract Miss Haitang's attention? Truly a toad lusting after a swan's meat. In my opinion, among this group of people, there is no one who can match Brother Gu in terms of alchemy. That's right. Later, Brother Gu will definitely amaze the world and attract Lady Haitang's attention. In the future, Brother Gu might even be able to win the heart of a beauty. We're really envious. Beside Gu Huaxiu, a few young men began to flatter him. The Gu clan was very powerful in the Yunfeng domain. Naturally, many people wanted to curry favor with Gu Huaxiu. Gu Huaxiu's face was full of arrogance and pride. In his opinion, these people were all half-baked. His Gu clan was a professional alchemist. In the Yunfeng domain, his reputation was only slightly lower than the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. He had absolute confidence in his alchemy skills. The assessment is very simple. You just have to refine a strengthening pill and hand it to me, Yun Haitang introduced. Following that, the disciples of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution brought out several alchemy cauldrons and placed them on the square. Each person was given a spiritual herb to refine a strengthening pill. The alchemy cauldrons and spiritual herbs were the same. Next, it was time to test their alchemy skills. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing casually walked up to two alchemy cauldrons. However, they realized that Gu Huaxiu had also walked up to them. This guy was definitely doing it on purpose. He probably wanted to show off his skills in front of Xian Yanqing and Lu Ming. "All right, let's start now. You have half an hour." After everyone had chosen their alchemy cauldrons, Yun Haitang announced. As soon as Yun Haitang finished speaking, everyone began to concentrate and began to refine. In the square, wisps of spiritual fire appeared and the heat began to rise. I didn't expect to refine a strengthening pill. My luck is not bad. Lu Ming smiled. The energy cultivation elixir was a very common elixir. It was a level 2 elixir. Coincidentally, the energy cultivation elixir was one of the elixirs that Lu Ming had mastered. Lu Ming was not in a hurry to start refining. Instead, he looked around. He realized that everyone was focused on controlling the spiritual fire to refine the pill. This girl is actually a level 4 inscriber. I couldn't tell. Lu Ming noticed that the green flame in Xian Yanqing's hand disappeared in a flash. A green spiritual fire represented a level 4 inscriber. The cultivation of an inscriber was much more difficult and slower than martial arts cultivation. It was already very good that he could become a level 4 inscriber at his age. Most importantly, Xian Yanqing's progress in martial arts was even more terrifying. Lu Ming noticed that there was also a green flame in Gu Huaxiu's hand. He was actually a level 4 inscriber. No wonder he was so arrogant. Then I'll start as well. Lu Ming smiled. His vital essence swirled and the lid of the alchemy furnace opened. Lu Ming patted the alchemy furnace, and a wisp of yellow mental fire flashed and disappeared. It surged into the alchemy furnace and began to heat it up. Just as Lu Ming started refining, Yun Haitang's expression suddenly changed, and she looked in Lu Ming's direction. What a strong spiritual fire! What a pure spiritual fire! Although this person is only a level 3 inscription master, the kindling he uses is no small matter. Moreover, the number of spiritual lamps he has lit is also no small matter. For every level, he has at least 4 lamps, and he might even have 5. Yun Haitang's mind raced as she stared at Lu Ming with her beautiful eyes. However, she didn't think that Lu Ming could have lit more than 6 spiritual lamps for each level. That was because he was already a true inscriber. It was too difficult to become a true inscriber. If one wanted to become a true inscriber, it didn't mean that one could light up 6 spiritual lamps for each level. One had to light up more than 6 spiritual lamps for each level. Lu Ming didn't know that he had already attracted Yun Haitang's attention. He focused on refining the elixir. After a while, the cauldron was heated up. He swept his spiritual qi and started to put in various spiritual herbs. The order in which he put in the spiritual herbs was very particular. The time between them and the timing had to be grasped precisely. Lu Ming put in the spiritual herbs one by one. After all the spiritual herbs were put in, he closed the cauldron and continued to pour in spiritual fire to refine the elixir. A moment later, a strong medicinal fragrance wafted out. At this moment, he could start to condense the elixir. Chapter 6, 29. Lu Ming's finger began to carve inscriptions in the air. Inscriptions flew into the cauldron one by one and disappeared. What exquisite inscriptions! Yun Haitang's eyes lit up once again. Lu Ming focused, and inscriptions flew into the cauldron one by one. In a short while, there was no medicinal fragrance coming out from the cauldron. Success! Lu Ming smiled. He opened the cauldron and took out the pills, placing them on a jade plate. Lu Ming looked around and found that the others were also opening their cauldrons. Haha, this is the pill you refined? What kind of dog shit is this? No one would pick it up even if you threw it on the road. At this moment, a mocking laughter sounded. By the side, Gu Hua was holding a jade plate. On the jade plate were the elixirs that he had refined. He walked toward Lu Ming. He cast a contemptuous glance at the elixir pills on Lu Ming's jade plate and said sarcastically, "The color is uneven. Obviously, the timing of putting in the elixir pills is not right. Also, what is this? There is not a single inscription on the elixir pills, and there is not the slightest medicinal fragrance. This is obviously a useless elixir. Haha, don't tell me you don't even know inscriptions." Gu Huashu laughed, revealing a look of disdain. His laughter attracted the attention of the surrounding people, who looked at Lu Ming's pills. Sure enough, there's not a single inscription and no medicinal fragrance. It's a waste pill indeed. This person doesn't know how to refine pills. What is he doing here? He's probably a playboy from some family, a toad lusting after a swan. He's probably trying to woo Miss Haidang. Tisk, I've seen many people like him. How could Miss Haidang like someone like him? The surrounding people looked at Lu Ming's elixir pills and whispered among themselves. Young Master Gu, this person is obviously a playboy who doesn't know how to refine pills. How can he compare to young Master Gu? That's right. Look at young Master Gu's pills. The pills are round and full. The color is even and transparent. The inscriptions are exquisite and the medicinal fragrance is rich. It's clearly a second-grade spiritual herb. No one in this group can compare to young Master Gu. Beside Gu Huashu, the youths flattered him again. Although it was flattery, what they said was indeed true. Gu Huashu's origin-strengthening pill was indeed the best choice. When the others saw Gu Huashu's pills, they shook their heads and sighed. They couldn't compare to Gu Huashu's pills at all. Lu Ming, ignore them. Xian Yinqing walked over and looked at Lu Ming's pills. Her view was similar to the others, but she knew that Lu Ming had only come into contact with the Tao of inscription for a few months, so it was normal for him to refine a useless pill. After all, Lu Ming's main focus was on cultivating martial arts. Lu Ming rubbed his nose, smiled, and didn't say much. "All right, bring out your medicinal pills and sign your names," Yun Haitang ordered. Everyone took the pills they had refined and placed them into a jade bottle. Then they signed their names on the jade bottle's label. "All right, you'll follow Deacon Feng to your respective rooms today. We'll gather here tomorrow morning," Yun Haitang said. Then everyone followed the middle-aged man and went to find their own places to stay. After the crowd left, Yun Haitang immediately took out a jade bottle. The name on the bottle was Lu Ming's. Yun Haitang poured out Lu Ming's pills and observed them carefully. "Haitang, this is clearly a useless pill. What's so special about it?" The two old men said. "A useless pill? Uncles, you've made a mistake this time." Yun Haitang wore a faint smile. Her eyes flickered with astonishment. Oh, the two old men were slightly confused. They carefully observed the pills that Lu Ming had refined. After taking a closer look, the two old men's expressions changed. They became somewhat serious, and slowly from serious to amazed. Such a brilliant inscription technique, such a pure pill! The two old men exclaimed in unison. "Uncles, you've seen it. The color of this pill doesn't seem to be balanced on the surface. The timing of adding the spiritual herbs isn't particularly precise. However, the pill is very pure and there are almost no impurities. This means that the spiritual fire of the person who refined the pill is extraordinary. All the impurities have been burned and refined. Also, this person's inscription technique is extremely exquisite. It's completely hidden on the surface of the pill. It can't be seen from the outside, but the combination of the pill is extremely exquisite. It has completely locked the medicinal effect. Therefore, there isn't a trace of medicinal fragrance." After speaking, a green flame appeared between Yun Haitang's fingers. The green flame represented a level 5 inscription master. Yun Haitang was only in her 20s, but she had already become a level 5 inscription master. It was shocking. The green spiritual fire flowed across the surface of the pill. Inscriptions immediately appeared on the surface of the pill. The inscriptions intertwined with each other. It was incomparably harmonious and magnificent. The two old men's eyes widened. They were even more amazed. "This Lu Ming is interesting." The corner of Yun Haitang's mouth curled into an indescribable smile. There seemed to be a trace of greed in that smile. As for the other pills, Yun Haitang didn't even look at them. She wasn't interested. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was very big. Everyone had their own courtyard. The environment was pretty good. After walking into the room in the courtyard, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged. He circulated the underworld God observation and started to cultivate his spiritual fire. Lu Ming's cultivation had reached a bottleneck. The 3 ultimate dragon god had been cultivated to perfection. As for the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, it was too difficult to cultivate to the 5th step. It wasn't something that could be achieved in a short period of time. The 5th step of the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps was equivalent to the 6th level of a lower demigod martial skill. It was extremely terrifying. Above the heaven level was the demigod martial skill. It was also divided into lower and upper grades. Above the demigod martial skill was the divine martial skill. Therefore, Lu Ming spent more time cultivating the path of inscription. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. On the 2nd day, everyone gathered at the square. Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing arrived together. Soon, a few hundred people had gathered. In the sky, 2 figures stepped on the air and arrived. It was a man and a woman. The woman was naturally Yun Haitang. The man looked to be in his mid-20s. He was very handsome and had a faint arrogance on his face. He arrived side by side with Yun Haidang and landed in the sky above the square. That's the other peerless genius of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. His name is Yun Songsheng. Whether it's alchemy or martial arts, he's extremely powerful. He's second only to Yun Haitang in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Moreover, his father is the patriarch of the Yun family, a Sea of Soul Realm Almighty. He's so handsome and has a good background. He's handsome and talented. If I can marry him, my life will be worth it. A young woman said, as if she was infatuated. Everyone, Yun Haitang called out softly. The crowd quieted down. I've seen all the pills that you guys refined yesterday. Sure enough, some of you are really good at refining pills. Even Haitang admires you a lot. I wouldn't dare to teach you. This time, we're mainly here to exchange pointers and improve each other's skills. Chapter 630. As soon as these words were spoken, it immediately caused a commotion. Among this group of people, there was actually someone who had caught Yun Haitang's attention and was able to casually enter Yun Haitang's courtyard to discuss alchemy with her. What did that mean? It meant that Yun Haitang had placed this person on the same level as her. More importantly, he could enter Yun Haitang's courtyard whenever he wanted. As the saying went, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Perhaps he would develop feelings for Yun Haitang after interacting with her more. Most of the men, regardless of age, had a burning look of anticipation in their eyes. Those who knew their place sighed inwardly. They knew that it wouldn't be them. Haha, I think Miss Haitang is most likely talking about you, young Master Gu. That's right. Whose alchemy skills are comparable to young Master Gu's in this group. I'm so envious. The people beside Gu Huashu immediately began to flatter him. Sai, it might not be me. Perhaps there's someone with better alchemy skills. You should know that there's always someone better, Gu Huashu said humbly. Although his words were humble, he couldn't hide the smug look on his face. Miss Haitang must be talking about me. Could it be that she's secretly interested in me? Otherwise, why would she ask me to go to her courtyard to discuss alchemy? Haha, that must be it, Gu Huashu thought happily in his heart. Congratulations, young Master Gu. You'll get a beauty soon. Someone even whispered to Gu Huashu. Gu Huashu was grinning from ear to ear. Miss Haitang, who is this person with great alchemy skills that you're talking about? Someone asked. Yu Haitang smiled and said, This person is young and elegant. He's a young talent. Miss Haitang, you're being too polite. I don't deserve such praise. As soon as Yun Haitang finished speaking, Gu Huashu stood up and pretended to be humble. Many people also looked at Gu Huashu enviously. In their opinion, the person Yun Haitang was talking about was undoubtedly Gu Huashu. However, Yun Haitang was stunned. She looked at Gu Huashu blankly and said, Brother, what are you doing? I'm not talking about you. The smile on Gu Huashu's face stiffened. The crowd also suddenly quieted down. After a while, someone could no longer hold it in and laughed out loud. Gu Huashu's expression was too hilarious. Some people tried their best to hold back their laughter until their faces turned red, while others burst out laughing. Beside Gu Huashu, the few people who had flattered him earlier were also frozen in place. Gu Huashu's body began to tremble. His handsome face flushed red. Shameful, this was too shameful. It turned out that the person Yun Haitang was talking about was not him at all. To think that he was still wishful thinking. This was really embarrassing. Also, how did Yun Haitang address him? Brother? She didn't even know his name. Gu Huashu wished there was a crack in the ground and he could crawl into it. In the end, he could only sit down with a red face. The few people beside him didn't even dare to look at him. The outstanding talent I'm talking about is called Lu Ming. Yun Haitang smiled sweetly and continued. Lu Ming. As soon as he said that, everyone looked at one another. Who was Lu Ming? Why had they never heard of him before? Only one person opened his eyes wide in astonishment. Lu Ming, is she talking about you? Xie Nianqing opened his eyes wide and glanced at Lu Ming in disbelief. She had also taken a glimpse at the pill that Lu Ming had refined. How was that possible? If there's no one else called Lu Ming with the same demeanor, then this Lu Ming must be me. Lu Ming rubbed his nose and said, "How shameless." Xie Nianqing rolled her eyes at Lu Ming. However, she was still very curious. "Don't tell me that the elixir you refined is something special." "Hee, maybe Miss Yun Haitang is interested in me." Lu Ming chuckled. "Shameless," Xie Nianqing said disdainfully. Meanwhile, Yun Haitang's gaze landed on Lu Ming's figure as she said, "Brother Lu, what do you think of my suggestion?" Lu Ming looked around and finally confirmed that Yun Haitang was talking about him. He rose from his seat with a smile and said, "Thank you, Miss Yun Haitang. I think it's great." Yun Haitang's face was filled with joy as she said, "I'm very impressed by Brother Lu's pill refining skills. Please guide me in the future." "Miss Yun Haitang is being too courteous," Lu Ming said smilingly. "Impossible, how could it be him? Miss Yun Haitang, are you mistaken?" A gloomy voice could be heard at that instant. Lu Ming glanced in the direction of the voice and saw Gu Huaxiu. "Oh, how could I be mistaken?" Yun Haitang asked. "Miss Yun Haitang, the pill that this guy refined yesterday did not have the same color and aroma. It's obviously a useless pill. His pill refining skills are a mess." "Miss Yun Haitang, don't be fooled," Gu Huaxiu said loudly. "That's right, Miss Yun Haitang, I saw it too. This guy basically doesn't know how to refine pills." "Yeah, I saw it too." Many people in the surroundings blurted out too. "Oh, you don't trust my judgment?" Yun Haitang asked with squinted eyes. "Miss Yun Haitang, it's not that we don't trust your judgment, but I'm guessing that this guy must have used some method to change the pill. The pill that he gave you wasn't refined by him at all." Gu Huaxiu blurted out. He initially saw Xie Nianqing and Lu Ming together. He greeted Xie Nianqing, but Xie Nianqing ignored him. Thus he was extremely displeased with Lu Ming. Just now, it was because of Lu Ming that he had embarrassed himself. Now that he had the chance to embarrass Lu Ming, he naturally had to seize the opportunity and not let it go. "Oh," Yun Haitang nodded slightly. A jade bottle appeared in her hand, and she poured out a pill. She held it in her hand and asked, "Is this the pill you're talking about?" Gu Huaxi was stunned and nodded. "Yes, it's this pill." "That's right, it's this one." The others nodded as well. "That's good. I said that Brother Lu's alchemy skills are superb because of this pill." Yun Haitang smiled. "How can it be? This is clearly a useless pill." Gu Huaxi was dumbfounded. "Useless pill? Watch carefully." The green mental energy fire on Yun Haitang's finger flowed. In the next moment, lines of inscriptions appeared on the surface of the pill, intertwining with each other. It was extremely beautiful. The inscriptions are hidden and the medicinal effect is locked. How is this possible? How is this possible? Gu Huaxiu exclaimed in disbelief. After all, he was a level 4 inscriber born in the world of alchemy. He still had a good eye and could naturally see the truth of this pill at a glance. The others also widened their eyes in shock. Concealing the inscriptions was not something that ordinary people could do. Only those who had an extremely deep and proficient understanding of inscriptions could do it. This represented a certain level, and only grandmasters in the alchemy world could do it. Chapter 631. Yun Haitang took the elixir pill refined by Lu Ming and explained, "Under the effect of the inscription, this elixir pill is perfectly integrated with all kinds of spirit herbs. Moreover, it is very pure and has a strong medicinal effect. It is more than 30% better than the second-grade energy nurturing elixir. Now, is there anything that everyone is unconvinced about?" Yun Haitang scanned the crowd. No one said anything. How could this be? Damn it! Gu Huaxiu roared in his heart. He looked at Lu Ming with murderous intent in his eyes. Today he had really lost a lot of face. He had embarrassed himself before, and now he was even more embarrassed. He sat down with a gloomy face. He was extremely jealous of Lu Ming. Not only was Lu Ming accompanied by a rare beauty, but now he even had the opportunity to come in contact with Yun Haitang. His eyes were about to burst into flames. You bastard! Xian Yinqing was also speechless. He realized that he could never see through Lu Ming. Brother Lu, take this crabapple flower. You can enter my courtyard at any time. Yun Haitang waved her hand, and a crabapple flower flew toward Lu Ming. It was a crabapple flower carved from beautiful jade, and it looked like a real one. Lu Ming reached out to take it and said with a smile, "Thank you, Miss Haitang." Then he sat down with a smile. Pervert, you can't walk away when you see a beauty. As expected, your lust hasn't changed. Xian Yinqing snorted and said disdainfully, "You're not jealous, are you?" Lu Ming looked at Xian Yinqing with a smile. Xian Yinqing's face turned slightly red. He curled his lips and said, "Who's jealous? Don't be so smug. Who would be jealous of you? Humph, go find your Miss Haitang. But let me tell you, this crabapple flower is very prickly. Don't get yourself into trouble before you can take advantage of it." "Don't worry." Lu Ming smiled and said, "I'll get her inscription token." Everyone. At this moment, Yun Songsheng, who had remained silent the entire time, finally spoke. "I also want to learn from Haitang. Pick a person with great alchemy skills who can come find me at any time to discuss alchemy." Yun Songsheng's words caused the spirits of many women to rise, especially the younger ones. Their eyes shone brightly as they stared at Yun Songsheng, hoping to attract his attention. Yun Songsheng's gaze finally landed on Xian Yinqing. A fiery light flashed through his eyes as he warmly smiled. "Miss Xian Yinqing, your alchemy skills are truly admirable. In the future, you can come to my courtyard at any time to discuss alchemy with me. How about it?" Everyone followed Yun Songsheng's gaze and looked at Xian Yinqing. So it's her. No wonder Yun Songsheng paid attention to her. This thought flashed through many people's minds. Xian Yinqing's peerless talent was already in everyone's eyes. Apart from Gu Huaxiu, there were no less than 10 other young men who had approached Xian Yinqing to talk to her, but they were all chased away by Xian Yinqing. Many women looked at Xian Yinqing with jealousy, but they also sighed in their hearts, knowing that they were no match for Xian Yinqing. Not interested. To everyone's surprise, Xian Yinqing's reply was 3 cold words, not interested. The smile on Yun Songsheng's face stiffened. He had never imagined that Xian Yinqing would reject him so straightforwardly. How could he get out of this situation? "Miss Xia, please reconsider." Yun Songsheng's expression turned cold. Not interested means not interested. Xian Yinqing rejected him without any hesitation. Yun Songsheng's face turned completely dark, extremely unsightly. He had heard from others that there was a peerless beauty in this group, which was why he had come with Yun Haitang. As soon as he arrived, he saw Xian Yinqing. Xian Yinqing's beauty had moved his heart. He had wanted to learn from Yun Haitang and let Xian Yinqing interact more with him. After some time, how could Xian Yinqing escape from his grasp? However, he had never thought that Xian Yinqing would reject him so blatantly. "Good, good, very good." Yun Songsheng said a few words, and a vicious look flashed in the depths of his eyes. Then he turned around and left. Xian Yinqing curled his lips casually. He did not take it to heart at all. Yu Haitang glanced at Xian Yinqing. No one knew what she was thinking. Then she said with a smile, "Well, today I will explain some knowledge of alchemy. If there is anything wrong with what Haitang said, you can tell us, and we will discuss it together." After that, Yun Haitang sat cross-legged on a futon and began to explain. Lu Ming also listened carefully. Although he had a good grasp of inscriptions, he was still unfamiliar with alchemy. Otherwise, the color of the elixir would not be uneven. To be honest, Yun Haitang did have a deep understanding of alchemy. Lu Ming was like a sponge, crazily absorbing the knowledge of alchemy. Yun Haitang had been talking for 3 hours before she ended the explanation. The crowd also dispersed. Lu Ming, when are you going to do it? Xian Yinqing asked on the way. In 2 days, I will find an opportunity to take the inscription token, Lu Ming said. Xian Yinqing glared at Lu Ming and said worriedly, Hey, I say, you can't resist the temptation of beauty. However, Lu Ming suddenly looked at her without blinking. He suddenly approached her and whispered, Don't worry, I can resist other people's beauty, but I can't resist your beauty. Pervert. Xian Yinqing blushed and kicked out. Lu Ming laughed and flew back, dodging the kick and moving forward. Sai, this guy, why is his luck so good? He can meet beautiful women wherever he goes. I have traveled across the 9 heavens and 10 lands, but I have never met so many beautiful women. Dandan sighed and was jealous of Lu Ming. Soon they approached the dormitory. A few figures blocked their way. Gu Huaxiu and a few young men. Lu Ming smiled. It seemed that Gu Huaxiu couldn't hold it in any more. What can I do for you? Lu Ming smiled faintly. What can I do for you? Kid, don't you know the mistake you made? A young man next to Gu Huaxiu shouted. That's right. You embarrassed young Master Hua today. Do you know your crime? Another young man shouted. I embarrassed him? Haha, what a joke. Lu Ming laughed. Kid, what are you laughing at? What's so funny? Gu Huaxiu said coldly. Isn't it funny? Did I embarrass you? You asked for it, okay? Before Miss Haitang finished speaking, you stood up on your own. And later, you stood up and said that my pills were useless. Did I say anything from the beginning to the end? You asked for it, didn't you? Lu Ming said with a smile. How dare you? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been embarrassed in front of everyone. If it weren't for you, I would have come first this time. Gu Huaxiu yelled. Lu Ming was speechless. He really didn't understand his logic. He didn't have the ability, but he blamed everything on others. How ridiculous was that? Chapter 632. Lu Ming shook his head. He was too lazy to waste his time talking to someone like him. Kid, kneel down and admit your mistake. Cripple your cultivation, and get out of the Cloud Ocean Alchemy Court, and I'll spare your life. Gu Huaxiu snapped coldly. Idiot. Lu Ming let out a sigh. Kid, what did you say? Gu Huaxiu's expression instantly turned dark. I said, idiot, get out of my way. A good dog doesn't block the way. Lu Ming snapped coldly. Son of a bitch. How dare you talk to young Master Gu like that? I'll cripple you. Beside Gu Huaxiu, a young man dashed forward and stabbed at Lu Ming's vital acupuncture points with his finger like a sword. This young man possessed a cultivation of the 5th layer martial emperor realm. If he were to be hit, Lu Ming's cultivation would be crippled. Bang! However, before his sword intent could reach Lu Ming, he was sent flying with a kick from Lu Ming. He flew a few hundred meters and crashed into a hill, causing a cloud of dust to fill the air. Meanwhile, the crowd was startled, causing them to stop and spectate from afar. That Lu Ming doesn't seem to be weak. A 5th layer martial emperor realm cultivator in the lesser success stage was sent flying with a single attack. I've never heard of him before. Could he be a genius from another district? The crowd whispered among themselves. Gu Huaxiu's expression turned colder as he said, So you do have some capabilities, but that's nothing before me. Die! Gu Huaxiu's figure dashed forward and lashed out a palm at Lu Ming. As the palm passed, a loud explosion took place as the force of the palm surged in Lu Ming's direction. A peak 7th layer martial emperor realm cultivator in the greater success stage. This was Gu Huaxiu's strength. It was impressive to be able to achieve this at his age. Unfortunately, his opponent was Lu Ming. A spear appeared in his hand as he lashed out. Bang! The spear collided with Gu Huashu's palm, causing his figure to be knocked backward rapidly. Lu Ming and Wei Ran remained motionless. Of course, this was the result of Lu Ming doing his best to restrain his power. Otherwise, Gu Huashu would have been blasted apart by the spear. Lu Ming didn't want to reveal too much of his strength and attract the attention of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Otherwise, it would be more difficult to obtain the heavenly demon fruit, and the other party would definitely increase their vigilance. Lu Ming suppressed his strength to be slightly stronger than Gu Huashu's. Damn it, kill! Gu Huashu roared and charged towards Lu Ming. His palms turned crimson gold as he sent out palm strikes towards Lu Ming. The violent palm strikes caused the space around them to tremble. Lu Ming's spear vibrated as it thrust forward, colliding with Gu Huashu's palm strike. With every thrust of the spear, Gu Huashu's palms crumbled. Lu Ming strode forward, closing in on Gu Huashu. Lose! In the end, Lu Ming roared and struck Gu Huashu with his spear, sending him flying. Puff! Gu Huashu struggled to get up and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale as he looked at Lu Ming with resentment. Brat, just you wait. Gu Huashu left with his tail between his legs after saying that. This Lu Ming is so strong. Not only is his alchemy skill high, but his cultivation is also very strong. He's already a greater success stage sovereign at such a young age. He's considered a decent genius. Let's not provoke him in the future. The others by the side looked at Lu Ming, revealing a fearful expression. One after another they left. I thought you would kill him in one move, Xian Yinqing said. It's easy to kill him, but I'm afraid of alerting the enemy. Lu Ming smiled as the two returned to the dormitory. Night fell. In a luxurious courtyard of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, two figures were discussing something. This was the Haitang courtyard. These two were Yun Haidang and Yun Songshen. Hee, that Gu Huashu has made his move, saving us some trouble. I was planning to send someone to test Lu Ming's strength. Yun Haitang raised a cup of red wine and took a sip before she giggled. A seventh-layer martial Emperor Realm sovereign at the greater success stage. Not bad, but he's not a threat to us. That bitch Xia Nianqing dares to reject me in front of the crowd. Damn it, that bitch dares to put on an act. I'll make her beg for mercy on my bed sooner or later, Yun Songshen said in a cold tone as his eyes flickered with lust. As for the woman, don't touch her for now. At least, before I get my hands on her, you won't be able to do anything to her. Otherwise, what if you scare my prey away? This Lu Ming, I can feel that his spiritual flame is extraordinary. It must be delicious. Saying this, Yun Haitang stuck out her tongue and licked her plump lips. Her eyes flickered with lust. The action was extremely seductive, causing Yun Songshen to swallow his saliva. His eyes burned passionately as a certain part of his body began to react. What is it? Do you want to have a go? I'll accompany you. Yun Haitang licked her lips and glanced at Yun Songshen seductively. However, Yun Songshen shuddered and took a step back. His eyes flickered with a hint of fear as he said with a smile, Forget it. I still have something to do. I'll be leaving first. Saying this, Yun Songshen left the Haitang courtyard as if he was fleeing for his life. Lu Ming, Yun Haitang mumbled as the lust in her eyes grew thicker. For 3 days in a row, there was a different person explaining alchemy to them. Lu Ming's understanding of alchemy advanced by leaps and bounds. His alchemy skills also improved a lot. During this period, Lu Ming also tried to refine elixirs a few times. He could clearly feel that every time he succeeded in refining elixirs, the law of inscription would send down traces of power of inscription to strengthen his mental flame. However, The elixirs that he refined were of a lower level than his inscription. Hence, the flames of inscription that were sent down were very few and far between. Only when refining high-quality pills or pills of a higher level than his inscription would the law of inscription produce more power of inscription. This was very helpful to the cultivation of the spiritual flame. However, it was not possible to reach that level in a short time. During these 3 days, Lu Ming did not look for Yun Haitang. Yun Haitang also did not send anyone to look for him. On the 3rd day, when night fell, a figure appeared in Lu Ming's dormitory. It was Xian Yinqing. "Lu Ming, I'll take you to see something interesting." Xian Yinqing said. "Something interesting?" Lu Ming was stunned. "Follow me. Be careful." Xian Yinqing said. Then the two of them retracted their auras and left the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Soon they saw a few figures in black robes flying out from the other side of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution and heading into the distance at an extremely fast speed. "Let's follow them," Xia Nianqing whispered. The two of them followed behind the black-robed figures for hundreds of thousands of miles. At this time, the black-robed figures suddenly landed in a small village. "We have to hurry. We must collect 99 strands of connate blood qi tonight," one of them said. Lu Ming felt that his voice was somewhat familiar. "They're really here to collect connate blood qi." Chapter 633. A total of 3 black-robed men rushed into a wooden house, silently. Inside the house, there was a young man and woman who were not even 20 years old and a baby. The black-robed men waved their hands, and 2 streams of true yuan entered the young man and woman's body, causing them to fall into a coma. Then the 3 black-robed men carved inscriptions into the baby's body. From the baby's heart, a blood-red qi was slowly extracted. "Damn it!" Lu Ming's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. Although he had heard about it before, Lu Ming couldn't control the killing intent in his heart after witnessing it with his own eyes. Extracting a baby's Xiantian qi to refine a pill, this method was extremely cruel and could kill people. "Stomp! Stomp!" Lu Ming didn't restrain his aura anymore and walked into the wooden house. "Who is it?" The 3 black-robed men immediately noticed someone and shouted, "The people who will kill you." Lu Ming walked into the wooden house with cold eyes. Then Xian Yinqing also walked in. "It's the 2 of you. Haha, since you've seen this scene, I can only send you on your way. Originally, I wanted to let you live for a few more days." One of the black-robed men sneered. "Yun Songsheng." Lu Ming's eyes moved. No wonder he felt that this person's voice was familiar. At this moment, he guessed that it was Yun Songsheng. "Hee, it's me." The black-robed man took off the hood on his head, revealing a face filled with killing intent. It was Yun Songsheng. Yun Songsheng's fiery eyes fell on Xian Yinqing and sneered. "Bitch, you actually dared to reject me in front of everyone. Do you know that it's your fortune that I'm interested in you? Today, I'll cripple your cultivation and let you enjoy it. Hee. Lu Ming, leave this guy to me." Xian Yinqing's voice was cold as if there was no emotion. Of course, Lu Ming's heart was already mourning for Yun Songsheng. Attack, only cripple their cultivation. I want them alive. Yun Songsheng waved his hand. Shua, whoosh. At the same time, Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing quickly retreated out of the wooden house and flew into the sky. "You want to leave? Don't even think about it." Yun Songsheng and the other 2 chased madly and caught up to the sky. "Leave? Who wants to leave? It's just that it's more convenient here." Lu Ming smiled faintly. "Do it. I'll leave this brat to you. As for that bitch, I'll personally serve her." Yun Songsheng sneered and released a powerful aura. Peak of the 8th layer of the Martial King realm. This Yun Songsheng had reached the peak of the 8th layer Martial Emperor realm. No wonder he was so proud of himself. Boom! Boom! The auras of the other two black-robed men also burst out. They were also at the early stage of the 8th level of the martial king realm. Both of them pounced on Lu Ming. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two black-robed men's bodies hadn't even reached them when their throats were pierced by two spear lights. They couldn't even let out a blood-curdling scream. Lu Ming's figure disappeared with a flicker. Their blood essence was devoured by Lu Ming, while their storage rings were now in Lu Ming's hand. Yun Songxing's eyes opened wide as he stared at the scene in disbelief. Wasn't Lu Ming's cultivation only slightly stronger than Gu Huaxiu's? How did he become so powerful all of a sudden? Two 8th-layer martial emperor realm experts were killed before they could even react. Hiding his strength. Lu Ming must have been hiding his strength before this. Let's go. Without hesitation, Yun Songxing turned around and fled. Being able to kill two 8th-layer martial emperor realm experts with ease, his strength was definitely stronger than his. Trying to escape? Xie Nianqing's gaze turned cold. She raised her jade-like hand and pressed it into the air. An invisible force field was generated, causing Yun Songxing's figure to be suspended in the air. Such a fascinating martial skill! Lu Ming exclaimed. He had experienced this martial skill before, and it was indeed powerful. He had asked Xie Nianqing about it, and learned that this martial skill was called Heavenly Demon Force Field. However, Xie Nianqing had only just learned it. She had come to the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution to obtain the Heavenly Demon Fruit in order to cultivate the Heavenly Demon Force Field. With the Heavenly Demon Fruit, her Heavenly Demon Force Field would be upgraded to a higher level. Yun Songxing was terrified. He tried his best to prick with the needles, but with his cultivation, he could not break free from the restraint of the Heavenly Demon Force Field. Let me go! Let me go! What are you doing? My father is the patriarch of the Yun clan, a Sea of Soul Realm expert. If you dare to kill me, my father will not let you go. Yun Songxing screamed in fear. Lu Ming, wait for me here. Xie Nianqing waved her hand and flew away with Yun Songxing. Soon, Yun Songxing's blood-curdling screams could be heard. Even Lu Ming could not bear to hear it. This seems like it's better not to offend women in the future. Lu Ming felt cold sweat on his back. After a while, the screams stopped abruptly. Xie Nianqing flew back alone. Let's go back. Xie Nianqing said, Dead. Lu Ming asked, N. Xie Nianqing nodded and flew forward. Lu Ming caught up and said, Yun Songxing's death will probably cause a commotion in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. It's better for us to keep a low profile. Xie Nianqing nodded. With their current battle strength, it would be difficult for them to face a Sea of Soul Realm expert. Sea of Soul Realm was much stronger than Martial King Realm. An ordinary Peak King Realm expert in the first layer of the Spiritual Sea Realm could kill a bunch of them with a slap. The two returned to the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution without anyone noticing. In a mountain range hundreds of thousands of miles away from the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, Gu Huaxiu sat cross-legged on a mountain peak. Damn it! If I don't kill that brat, I swear I'm not human. Gu Huaxiu growled, his voice filled with resentment. Hee brat, you want revenge? Stop dreaming. If I'm not wrong, that Lu Ming didn't use his full strength when he fought with you. It could even be said that he only used a little bit of his strength. Suddenly, a shriveled and unpleasant voice sounded. The voice came out of nowhere. However, Gu Huaxiu was clearly the only one in the area. Gu Huaxiu didn't seem surprised at all. He only frowned and roared. You're saying that Lu Ming didn't use his full strength? Damn it. Yes. If I'm not wrong, that Lu Ming definitely has the battle strength of a Peak King Realm expert. And that little girl gives off a very dangerous feeling. She's probably not weaker than that brat. She might even be stronger. The shriveled voice sounded again. Damn it, why is it like this? Doesn't that mean I can't take revenge? Damn it. Gu Huaxu roared. That's not necessarily true. You should have prepared the things I asked you to prepare, right? As long as you do as I ask, I guarantee that your cultivation will skyrocket in a short period of time. It'll be more than enough for you to defeat those two. The shriveled voice said, I've prepared everything, but can I really defeat that brat Lu Ming in a short period of time? You just said that he has the battle strength of a peak king. Chapter 634. Kid, you're so short-sighted. What's the big deal about defeating that kid? From now on, your cultivation will continue to soar. It'll be easy for you to enter the list of top 1,000 talents. By then, Yun Haitang will throw herself at you. You can have as many beauties as you want. The shriveled voice outlined a beautiful future for Gu Huaxu. Gu Huaxu's eyes were burning with passion. All right, senior. I'll listen to you. Gu Huaxu gritted his teeth, and a jade bottle the size of a wine jar appeared in his hand. It was filled with a dark green liquid that emitted a nauseating stench. Gu Huaxu frowned at the sight. Kid, this miraculous medicine is my life's work. Although it smells bad, it's only temporary. You'll have a bright future in the future. Drink it. The shriveled voice said. All right. Gu Huaxu gritted his teeth, picked up the jade bottle, and gulped down the entire bottle of dark green liquid. Good, good. Ha ha ha. That voice laughed with incomparable excitement. A moment later, dark green runes rose from Gu Huaxu's abdomen and covered his entire body. They rapidly gathered toward his head. What's going on? Why do I feel like I can't use my true essence? I can't even use my intent realm. I can't even move my body. What's going on? Gu Huaxu cried out in panic. Ha ha ha, the heavens are on my side. I can finally be resurrected. The shriveled voice laughed maniacally. Then, a shadow flew out of Gu Huaxu's body. It looked like an old man, and his eyes were filled with excitement. What are you trying to do? Gu Huaxu finally felt that something was wrong. What am I trying to do? Of course, I'm going to use your body to come back to the world. All my efforts were not in vain. Ha ha. The old man laughed maniacally, then turned into a ray of light and rushed into Gu Huaxu's forehead. What are you doing? Get out of here. Gu Huaxu roared. His face was twisted as he struggled madly, as if he was fighting against something. However, half an hour later, Gu Huaxu's voice softened. The light in his eyes dimmed as he closed them, but in the next moment his eyes suddenly opened, revealing a look of ecstasy. Ha ha ha! I've finally taken over this body and returned to the world. Great, great, this is great. Moreover, I've made it in time for the Battle of Providence. This body just so happens to meet the requirements. This time, I'm going to seize a great opportunity. Gu Huaxu laughed. To be precise, he was no longer Gu Huaxu. Gu Huaxu, I will use your identity for now. However, your cultivation is too weak and you need to raise it. Also, there seems to be something good in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. You must get your hands on it. Gu Huaxu grinned, then sat down with his legs crossed and began cultivating. As he cultivated, the boundless spiritual qi in the sky and earth gathered frantically towards Gu Huaxu's body. Gu Huaxu's aura also rose rapidly. Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Indeed, from the second day onwards, Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing felt that the atmosphere in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution had changed. It had become somewhat solemn. Moreover, there was no one to teach them. Lu Ming and the rest suddenly had nothing to do. Yun Haitang's figure had also disappeared. She did not show up and did not look for Lu Ming either. Lu Ming knew that something must have happened to Yun Tsongsheng, which had alerted the higher-ups of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Many of the things that the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution did were shady. They were afraid that they would attract the attention of the major forces. He believed that they would not dare to go out and collect connate blood qi for the time being. Since there was nothing to do, Lu Ming decided to cultivate in his dormitory. In the Temple of Paragon, Lu Ming sat down with his legs crossed. There were some strange metals beside him. They were all refining materials. With a roll of his true essence, a piece of dark gold metal appeared in front of Lu Ming. Lu Ming stretched out his hand, and a wisp of yellow flame flew out. It wrapped around the dark gold metal and began to burn fiercely. Lu Ming's spiritual flame used the earth core flowing flame as the fire seed. Its temperature was terrifyingly high. In a short while, the dark gold metal completely turned into a pool of liquid. It surged in the air and sizzled in the flames. Wisps of black flames could be seen floating upwards. This was burning the impurities in the metal. After a short while, Lu Ming added another piece of metal and continued to condense it with a spiritual flame. Just like that, Lu Ming added 6 pieces of metal consecutively. The 6 pieces of metal turned into liquid and fused together. Slowly, the liquid metal turned into a long sword. There were strange patterns on it, and the sword was extremely sharp. However, this was only a half-finished product. When the long sword was formed, Lu Ming's fingers quickly inscribed inscriptions in the air. Inscriptions flew into the sword and disappeared. The aura on the long sword also became stronger and stronger, giving off a feeling of showing off its sharpness. The speed at which Lu Ming's fingers inscribed inscriptions became faster and faster. It was so fast that only a bunch of afterimages were left. Half an hour later, Lu Ming let out a long breath and stopped inscribing. The spiritual flame was also retracted. The long sword fell into Lu Ming's hand. Swish, swish. Lu Ming picked up the long sword and waved it a few times. A sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out. High, grade rank 3 spirit weapon. The corner of Lu Ming's mouth curled into a smile as he felt the power of inscription sprinkled down by the law of inscription. This was Lu Ming's first time refining, and he had already refined a high-grade, rank 3 spirit weapon. Lu Ming was already quite satisfied. This was related to Lu Ming's previous 2 levels, which were the perfect state with 10 spirit lamps lit. As long as Lu Ming practiced for a period of time, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to refine rank 3 spirit weapons. He might even be able to refine rank 4 spirit weapons. In the following period of time, Lu Ming spent most of his time cultivating the underworld observation method, refining pills and refining weapons, except for a little time every day to comprehend the essence of heaven and earth and the 9 dragons ascending heaven steps. Moreover, Lu Ming felt that he was more talented in refining weapons. Under Danden's guidance, Lu Ming refined a high-grade, rank 3 spirit weapon in 3 days. 7 days later, Lu Ming refined a high-grade, rank 3 spirit weapon. 12 days later, Lu Ming successfully refined a low-grade, rank 4 spirit weapon. Refining a high-grade spirit weapon, or refining a higher-grade spirit weapon, the power of inscription from the law of inscription increased greatly. It was much faster than cultivating the underworld observation method. Lu Ming's spiritual flame increased rapidly. In just half a month, Lu Ming had successfully ignited the 8th spirit lamp and was about to ignite the 9th. Lu Ming's goal was to ignite the 10th spirit lamp. This was only possible because he had the underworld observation method and could refine a higher grade spirit weapon. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't even think about it. In this half a month, the atmosphere in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was very abnormal. However, as time passed, the atmosphere slowly returned to normal. On the 16th day, an elder finally came out to give a lecture. Young Master Lu Ming, Miss Haitang invites you to Haitang Courtyard for a chat. Chapter 635. It was finally here. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Xian Yanqing glanced at Lu Ming and said in a strange tone, "Your beauty is here. Make good use of it." Lu Ming bitterly smiled and winked at Xian Yinqing. Then, he followed the maid to Haitang Courtyard. Haitang Courtyard was located on another mountain peak with beautiful scenery. Although it was a courtyard, it was built magnificently and occupied an extremely large area. It could be said that this entire mountain peak was Haitang Courtyard's territory. There were even stone palaces built in the belly of the mountain. The maid led Lu Ming through many twists and turns before arriving at a stone palace. This stone palace was built in the belly of the mountain. Light couldn't directly shine in. The walls of the stone palace were inlaid with luminous stones, giving the stone palace a hazy feeling. Within the stone palace, there was a jade table and several jade stools. On the jade table, there were already some spirit fruits, wine, and dishes. After the maid led Lu Ming here, she retreated. Now, only Lu Ming was left in the stone palace. Lu Ming looked around with interest. Then he picked up his wine cup and poured himself a cup of wine. He drank it in one gulp. Good wine. Lu Ming couldn't help but praise. This wine was mellow and mellow. After entering his stomach, he felt his entire body warm up. The aftertaste was endless. Since it's good wine, Brother Lu should drink a few more cups today. A sweet voice rang out as Yun Haitang walked in. Today, Yun Haitang was wearing a black muslin dress. The dress was split on both sides, revealing 2 snow-white and plump thighs as she walked. The key point was that the dress was transparent. Some of Yun Haitang's beauty was faintly discernible. Under the hazy light of the luminous stones, it was filled with endless temptation. Yun Haitang leisurely walked in front of Lu Ming. A rich fragrance rushed into Lu Ming's nose. Lu Ming felt his heartbeat quicken. To be honest, Yun Haitang's figure was very impressive. She was only a little worse than Mulin's. In such an environment and in such a dress, any man would be tempted. Lu Ming was naturally a normal man. Yun Haitang sat on the stone bench next to Lu Ming. Her snow-white, slender thighs were exposed from the slit in her gauze skirt all the way to her roots. Brother Lu, I gave you the right to come to the Crabapple Courtyard to look for me at any time, but you didn't come even after so long. You even asked little sister to send someone to invite you over. That's too much. You must be punished with 3 cups of wine. Yun Haitang poured a glass of wine for Lu Ming and smiled sweetly. Her voice was so sweet that it could penetrate one's heart. Fine, he deserves to be punished. Lu Ming smiled, picked up the wine cup, and drank it in one gulp. Then Yun Haitang poured another cup of wine for Lu Ming. Just like that, Lu Ming drank 3 cups in a row. Brother Lu's path of inscription is truly admirable. I feel that although Brother Lu is only a 3rd-level inscription master, your mental strength shouldn't be inferior to some 4th-level inscription masters. Could it be that Brother Lu has lit 5 spirit lamps for each level? Yun Haitang blinked her large eyes, staring at Lu Ming without blinking. Lu Ming faintly smiled. Not bad. I was lucky to have lit 5 spirit lamps for each of the first 2 levels. Lu Ming's words caused Yun Haitang's eyes to brighten. Greed flashed in the depths of her eyes. Brother Lu's talent is truly admirable. Come, let little sister offer you a cup of wine. Yun Haitang picked up the wine cup and drank it in one gulp. Following her movements, her proud bosom rose and fell. It was a soul-stirring sight. After drinking a cup of wine, Yun Haitang's face immediately flushed red, making her even more alluring. At this moment, a maidservant hurried in. Yun Haitang's face immediately darkened. Can't you see that I'm drinking with young Master Lu? What are you doing here? Miss, the maidservant's face turned pale, revealing a trace of fear. However, she still walked over, leaned over, and whispered a few words in Yun Haitang's ear. Yun Haitang's face changed slightly. You can leave first. The maidservant immediately excused herself. Brother Lu, I have a small matter to deal with. Wait for me here. Yun Haitang said softly. All right, it's fine. Miss Haitang, please go ahead. Lu Ming smiled. Yun Haitang got up and walked away gracefully. Lu Ming picked up the wine cup and drank another mouthful. Then he stood up and continued to inscribe in the air with both hands. Inscriptions appeared and entered his body. This was the inscription formation that he had inscribed in the past to restrain one's aura. Although this formation wasn't very advanced, it had a unique effect in retracting one's aura. According to Dandan, this was its own creation. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, even a Sea of Soul Realm expert wouldn't be able to sense his aura. Inscriptions appeared on Lu Ming's body. Then, in a flash, they all disappeared. Lu Ming's aura also disappeared without a trace. The effect was many times better than him retracting his aura. Then, Lu Ming's figure moved and left the stone hall. After passing through several corridors and secret rooms, he saw another stone hall. A voice came from the stone hall. Lu Ming quietly rushed into the stone hall and hid in a corner. This stone hall was bigger than the one Lu Ming was in. A young man was sitting at the table with Yun Haitang. Haitang, I haven't seen you in a while. I really missed you. Look, I came to see you as soon as I finished my business. The young man looked at Yun Haitang with fire in his eyes. You really missed me? Don't lie to me. Yun Haitang smiled and poured a cup of wine for the young man. Of course it's true. Sai, if it weren't for the fact that there's been a problem with the cultivation of my spiritual flame recently, not only is it not improving, it's even regressing. I really don't want to leave. I want to stay here and accompany you, the young man said. Your elders didn't find out the reason for your spirit fire's regression? Yun Haitang's eyes flashed and she asked softly. No, it's really strange. The young man muttered. Then his burning gaze fell on Yun Haitang and he said, It doesn't matter. As long as Haitang is here, even if I can't cultivate, it doesn't matter. As he spoke, the young man's hand hugged Yun Haitang's slender waist, and his breathing became heavy. Yun Haitang moaned and fell into the young man's arms. Then the two of them were entangled together. Their clothes fluttered and the two naked bodies were entangled together. Their heavy breathing echoed in the stone hall. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. He didn't expect to see such a scene when he came to check on the situation. To be honest, it was Lu Ming's first time seeing such entanglement. Lu Ming rubbed his nose and watched with interest. The young man's breathing became heavier and heavier. After a while, the young man let out a beast-like growl. At this moment, Lu Ming was shocked by the scene that took place. 3 green spirit lamps appeared above the young man's head. Above them was a green spirit fire. This meant that the young man was a 4th-level inscription master. Similarly, a spirit lamp appeared above Yun Haitang's head. Chapter 636. At this moment, the young man was immersed in the boundless pleasure and did not notice his abnormality at all. Yun Haitang's eyes flashed with frenzied greed. That poisonous snake was constantly absorbing the young man's spiritual fire. The flames of the young man's 3 spiritual lamps dimmed rapidly, especially the flame of the 3rd lamp. It was on the verge of collapse and would be extinguished at any time. It was no wonder that the young man said that his spiritual fire was weakening and that his cultivation of the spiritual fire was deteriorating instead of improving. It would be strange if it did not deteriorate after playing this game with Yun Haitang every day. Moreover, he did not notice it at all. Yun Haitang was using this method to cultivate her spiritual fire. Lu Ming felt a chill run down his spine. This process only took about 10 breaths of time. The spiritual fire above their heads dimmed and disappeared. The young man slumped to the ground like a pile of mud. Rest here for a while. I still have something to deal with. Yun Haitang said to the young man. The young man nodded. At this moment, Lu Ming quietly left the stone hall and returned to the previous stone hall. He poured a cup of wine and slowly sipped it. Not long after, footsteps sounded and Yun Haitang returned. Brother Lu, sorry to keep you waiting. Yun Haidang said in a sweet voice and walked over gracefully. Yun Haitang's thin clothes covered her body, and there was even a hint of redness on her face. She looked even more charming. However, Lu Ming could not help but feel a chill run down his spine when he thought of the scene just now. He was not in the mood to admire it at all. He only said perfunctorily, "I didn't wait long. You're quite fast." He indeed felt that the old man was quite fast. Yun Haitang smiled faintly and sat down beside Lu Ming. She poured a cup of wine for Lu Ming and then poured a cup for herself. She said, "Brother Lu, I'll punish myself with a cup." With that, she picked up the cup and drank it in one gulp. After putting down the cup, Yun Haitang blinked her big eyes and stared at Lu Ming. After a while, she said, "Brother Lu, I invited you here today to tell you something from the bottom of my heart." "Oh, what is it?" Lu Ming asked with a smile. Yun Haitang's face flushed red. Her body slowly approached Lu Ming. She placed a small hand on Lu Ming's shoulder. Her face was close to Lu Ming. Her breath smelled like orchids, and her hot breath blew on Lu Ming's face. Actually, the first time I saw Brother Lu, I felt that Brother Lu was the man I had been waiting for my whole life. Recently, I've been missing Brother Lu very much. As she spoke, Yun Haitang's plump body was about to sit on Lu Ming's lap. Her fragrance assailed his nostrils. With such a scene and Yun Haitang being such a rare beauty, he believed that no man would be able to resist such temptation. If Lu Ming hadn't seen that scene just now, he might have been tempted as well. However, at this moment, he did not feel anything at all. He said indifferently, "The way I see it, you're not missing me, but my spiritual fire." His calm and indifferent voice made Yun Haitang's movement stiffen. Her body, which almost sat on Lu Ming's lap, also froze in the air. She revealed an ugly smile on her face. She looked at Lu Ming and said coquettishly, "Brother Lu, what are you talking about? What do you mean by missing your spiritual fire? I don't understand. I have a question. I'd like to correct you. I'm younger than you, but you keep calling me little sister. It's embarrassing." Lu Ming said very seriously, "Hee, so it's little brother. I thought you were older than me." Yun Haitang's face stiffened, but she smiled again. "There's one more thing. After you left, I was bored, so I walked around and happened to see the exciting scene between you and that young master. Hee, I wonder what will happen if this spreads." Lu Ming laughed. Yun Haitang's face changed completely. It became extremely gloomy, and her eyes revealed a cold, murderous intent. "Little brother, it's not good to wander around in other people's territory. You'll pay with your life." As soon as he finished his words, Yun Haitang's finger pierced toward his throat like a sharp sword. Her hand was placed on Lu Ming's shoulder. Since the distance between them was too close, Yun Haitang was confident that she could kill Lu Ming with this move. But in the next moment, her 100% confidence was reduced to 0. This was because Lu Ming's hand had grabbed her wrist. She had no idea how Lu Ming had grabbed her wrist. Even with her peak 8th-layer martial Emperor realm cultivation, she was unaware of it. Die! In an instant, a short sword appeared in her other hand and slashed toward Lu Ming's throat. However, the next moment, her hand was grabbed by Lu Ming again. Lu Ming grabbed both of her wrists. A terrifying true energy surged into Yun Haitang's body, causing her body to go limp and her true qi to dissipate. She had no strength to resist. Her heart sank. "Who are you? What do you want?" Yun Haitang yelled. Lu Ming's cultivation was too terrifying. It was far above hers. "Nothing? I just want to take your inscription badge. I don't mind if I can get rid of evil for the people." Lu Ming smiled faintly. You killed Yun Songsheng, didn't you?" Yun Haitang asked. "You could say that." Lu Ming nodded. "The ancestor of the Yun clan won't let you go if you do that." Yun Haitang yelled. "Is that so?" Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as a murderous intent spread out. "Miss, At this time, a few maidservants heard the noise and rushed in. Lu Ming flicked his finger, and spear radiance flew out, penetrating the maidservants' dantians and destroying their cultivation. Their ability to speak was also sealed, so they couldn't speak for the time being. Feeling the cold, murderous intent from Lu Ming, Yun Haidang was scared. She smiled with a pale face and begged, "Lu Ming, brother Lu, I beg you, let me go. I can give you anything you want. Also, I will serve you well and make you comfortable. I guarantee that you will be satisfied." The meaning behind his words was self-evident. Lu Ming smiled faintly and said, "I don't need it." Then he pointed at Yun Haitong's dantian. Yun Haitong's cyclone collapsed, and she collapsed on the ground like a pile of mud. Her eyes were full of despair. Then Lu Ming pointed at Yun Haitong's glabella a few times. 5 spirit lamps appeared above Yun Haitong's head. The spirit lamps flickered a few times and then collapsed one by one. Yun Haitong's cultivation and inscription, Dao, had been destroyed. Lu Ming rolled up Yun Haitong's storage ring and took it in his hand. "Lu Ming, kill me if you can. Otherwise, I won't let you go." Yun Haidang shouted with hatred, "You will never be a threat to me." Lu Ming cast a faint glance at Yun Haidang. His tone was full of confidence. How could he take a mere Yun Haidang seriously? Moreover, she was someone who had crippled her cultivation and the Tao of inscription. Chapter 637. What's wrong? You're back so soon. Since a beauty invited you, why don't you take the opportunity to get closer to her? Xian Yinqing said sarcastically when he saw Lu Ming. Why would I get close to other women? If I want to get close to someone, it should be you. Lu Ming chuckled. Xian Yinqing blushed and said, "Stop it. Who wants to get close to you? Tell me, did you lust after her and get chased out?" Lu Ming was speechless. Was his character that bad? Seeing that Lu Ming did not speak, Xian Yinqing smiled. "Forget it. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's get down to business." Lu Ming took out Yun Haitong's storage ring and immersed his mind into it. After a while, a token appeared. "This is an inscription token? You're doing it so soon?" Xian Yinqing asked. "Of course. If I don't do it now, I'll have to sacrifice my body." Lu Ming muttered and said, "Now, let's do it immediately. Otherwise, we won't have a chance when others find out that something happened to Yun Haitang." "All right." Xian Yinqing was not a hesitant person and immediately nodded. "Wait a minute," Lu Ming shouted. Xian Yinqing looked at Lu Ming in confusion. "I'll inscribe an inscription array for you to restrain your aura." Lu Ming's hands were constantly inscribing. Inscriptions flew into Xian Yinqing's body. In a short while, the inscription array to conceal one's aura was completed. "Lu Ming, I didn't expect your inscription technique to be so brilliant." Xian Yinqing looked at Lu Ming curiously. "It's just SOO. Let's go." His figure flashed, and he went into the depths of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Xian Yinqing followed. At the same time, in a secret room of the Cloud Sea Pill Institution, a low roar like that of a wild beast could be heard. A white-haired elder had his heart pierced by Gu Huashu's claw. "You. Who are you?" Gu Huashu wasn't that strong? Disbelief flashed in the old man's eyes. He was a core elder of the Cloud Sea Alchemy Institution, a Peat King. Even if Gu Huashu had launched a sneak attack, he wouldn't have been able to pierce through his heart. The cultivation that Gu Huashu had just displayed was utterly terrifying. "Ha ha! Death is at hand. Why do you care so much? I just want your inscription token." True essence erupted, and the old man's aura vanished. Gu Huashu chuckled coldly. He licked his lips and took off the old man's storage ring. A moment later, a badge appeared in his hand, which was identical to the badge Lu Ming had obtained from Yun Haitang and the others. Gu Huashu's figure flickered, and he headed toward the treasury of the Cloud Sea Alchemy Institution. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing's cultivation was extremely profound. Their movement techniques were as fast as lightning, and with the inscription array concealing their auras, no one could discover them. Soon, the two of them arrived at the depths of the Cloud Sea Alchemy Institution. There was a huge mountain here. Halfway up the mountain, there was a stone door. The stone door was tightly shut, and there were inscription arrays all around it. Without the inscription token, even if one tried to force their way in, it would alert the upper echelons of the Cloud Sea Alchemy Institution, including the Sea of Soul Realm expert. Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing rushed to the mountainside, took out the inscription token, and poured their true essence into it. Buzz! The inscription token glowed and inscriptions appeared. Inscriptions also appeared on the stone door. These inscriptions formed a light shield in front of the door. At that moment, the light barrier parted to form a door. As for the stone door, it opened by itself. Let's go! Their figures flashed as they rushed in. The light barrier closed automatically, and so did the stone door. Behind the stone door, there was a wide passage. It was obviously man-made, and the walls were bumpy. The two of them followed the passage and moved forward quickly. The passage was slanted downwards, and it went underground. The two of them carefully moved forward for a few minutes. Suddenly, Lu Ming felt his hair stand on end, and a sense of danger erupted from the bottom of his heart. Be careful! Lu Ming suddenly pulled Xian Yanqing and retreated quickly. Chi! Two sharp forces shot into the place where the two of them had been, leaving two bottomless, thumb-sized holes in the ground. Die! A figure pounced out quickly, and a dark green claw light grabbed at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing's vital points. It was unbelievably fast. Buzz! A long spear condensed in Lu Ming's hand. The spear light pierced through the void and pierced forward. Heavenly Demon Force Field. Xia Nianqing pressed his hand forward, and a powerful force field burst out, encapsulating his opponent. Bang! Lu Ming's spear light collided with his opponent's. Lu Ming's figure swayed slightly, while his opponent retreated rapidly. How powerful! Lu Ming's eyes glistened. Despite his and Xian Yanqing's teamwork, their opponent was only knocked back and was not injured. This was a clear indication of his strength. Of course, it was also because they had not used their full strength in a hurry. Gu Huaxiu! At this moment, Lu Ming saw the person before him and was astounded, his eyes filled with disbelief. Xian Yanqing beside him had the same reaction. The person who had ambushed them was none other than Gu Huaxiu. Gu Huaxiu was only a 7th-layer martial emperor half a month ago. In just half a month's time, his cultivation had improved to such a terrifying level. The combat strength of the two of you is beyond my expectations. Gu Huaxiu let out a hollow laugh and licked his lips, staring coldly at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing frowned. They did not expect to stumble into Gu Huaxiu here. You're here to rob the treasure of the Cloud Ocean Pill Court too, right? Lu Ming said. Not bad. I didn't expect you two to be here too. Very well. I'll use this chance to get rid of you. Gu Huaxiu's eyes flickered as his figure transformed into more than 10 illusionary figures, charging in Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing's direction. Every illusory figure looked real, and every illusory figure exuded a powerful aura. Sky Poison Claw. Gu Huaxiu groaned as he lashed out with a claw glow. The illusionary figures lashed out with their claws, covering Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing's vitals. Heavenly Demon Force Field. Heavenly Demon Cleave. Xia Nianqing roared as the Heavenly Demon Force Field exploded, containing a terrifying cutting power. Swoosh! Swoosh! Lu Ming's spear transformed into more than 10 spear radiances, piercing through the illusionary figures. Bam! Bam! The three of them had restrained their genuine essence during the battle. Otherwise, with their combat strength, they would have pierced through the mountain. I didn't expect the two of you to be so powerful. I'm afraid even the lower-ranked geniuses on the list of top 1,000 talents are no match for either of you. Chapter 638. However, Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing were equally shocked. Gu Huaxiu had reached such a terrifying level in just half a month. His cultivation had already reached the level of a peak king. Furthermore, the martial skills he used were extremely strange, and his battle prowess was extremely strong. Lu Ming wasn't confident that he could win in a one-on-one battle. This guy's condition is too strange. Dandan stared at Gu Huaxiu with her dark eyes, her eyeballs rolling in their sockets. Dandan, what did you see? Lu Ming asked. Dandan had said that it had lived for a long time, and Lu Ming felt that it might be true. Perhaps Dandan could really see something. It's a bit like possession, but it's not easy. It requires a series of coincidences, or it'll be very difficult to succeed. Dandan muttered. Possession. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing's expressions changed as disbelief appeared in their eyes. They had heard of the legend of possession. It was said that after a cultivator reached the spiritual god realm and formed a spiritual god, the spiritual god wouldn't crumble immediately even if the physical body was destroyed. It could even be reborn through possession. However, seizing someone's body wasn't as easy as one would imagine. Once a spiritual god left the body, it would be extremely weak and wouldn't be able to exist for long. Most importantly, every person's will was extremely strong and even involved the law of life. Basically, it was impossible to be possessed. If a spiritual god wanted to possess someone, it would usually end up in ashes. However, there were examples of successful possession in history, but it was too rare. Could it be that Gu Huaxiu had been possessed by a powerful existence? At this moment, Gu Huaxiu's expression changed drastically. I'll let the two of you go for now. I'll take your lives in the future. Gu Huaxiu snorted coldly and quickly retreated into the depths of the tunnel. After him. The two chased after him. The three of them continued forward, passing through the East Bay and West Bay. After a while, a huge underground cave appeared in front of them. On the ceiling of the underground cavern, there were blood-red gems embedded in the stone walls, scattering blood-red light. In the middle of the underground cavern, there was actually a medicinal field with more than a dozen types of spirit herbs planted. Haha, blood infant fruit, dragon poison fruit, my intuition was right. As soon as Gu Huaxiu arrived, he was overjoyed and rushed toward the fruit trees. Heavenly demon fruit! Xian Yinqing saw a fruit tree that was as tall as a man. It was pitch black, and there was only one fruit on it. It was the size of a fist, and its surface was covered with strange patterns. This was the heavenly demon fruit that Xian Yinqing needed. Xian Yinqing pounced on the heavenly demon fruit. Wang, wang. At this moment, the air began to vibrate violently. The vibrations were densely packed, as though countless bees were flying around. However, the vibrations were thousands of times stronger than bees. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Immediately, beetles flew out from the ground under the fruit trees. They shot toward Gu Huaxiu and Xian Yinqing like bullets. Their speed was shocking. The vibrations were caused by the beetles' wings flapping in the air. Be careful! Lu Ming exclaimed softly and dashed over quickly. Heavenly demon force field. Xian Yinqing pressed his palm down, and the powerful heavenly demon force field enveloped the beetles. However, the beetles' speed was only slightly affected, and they continued to rush toward Xian Yinqing. Heavenly demon cleave. An incomparably sharp cutting power erupted, and a cutting power like wind blades slashed towards the beetles. Clang! Clang! The powerful cutting force cut through the beetles, but the sound of metal clashing could be heard, and sparks flew everywhere. Only a few of the beetles were cut in half, while the rest were sent flying. They slowed down for a moment before rushing over again. On the other side, a short sword appeared in Gu Huashu's hand, and he slashed repeatedly. However, the result was the same. Only a few beetles were killed, while the rest were sent flying. Sacred beetles! Damn it! Why are there sacred beetles here? Gu Huashu roared. Wang, wang, the beetles flew up again, and there were at least 1,000 of them. Lu Ming rushed forward, and a huge spear light condensed in his hand. He swept it out, and dozens of the sacred beetles were sent flying like bullets, crashing into the surrounding walls and blasting large holes in them. However, even more sacred beetles pounced on Lu Ming. This kind of sacred beetle had a long spike on its mouth. It was abnormally sharp, and no one wanted to be pierced by this kind of spike. Shao Qing, take the heavenly demon fruit and retreat. Lu Ming shouted. Juniors, today, none of you will be able to leave. All of you will stay here. At this moment, a bone-chilling voice sounded. Boom! In the air above the cave, a mighty and terrifying aura pressed down. This aura gave people the feeling of facing a vast ocean. Not good. It's a Sea of Soul Realm expert. Lu Ming's face changed. It seemed that the Cloud Ocean Alchemy Institution had been waiting for them here. 9 dragons, stomping the sky. Lu Ming didn't hesitate, and directly used the 9 dragons, stomping the sky. His body turned into a ray of light, and in a flash he dodged the large group of sacred beetles and rushed toward the heavenly demon fruit. Pum! Pum! Then, with a sweep of his spear, a group of sacred beetles in front of him were sent flying. His Zhen Yuan swept forward and wrapped around the heavenly demon fruit, and Lu Ming put it into his storage ring. Heavenly demon fruit, let's go! Lu Ming shouted, and his body flew toward the exit. At the same time, Xian Yanqing also retreated. Juniors, stay here. A furious roar rang out, and 2 powerful forces pressed down on the 2 of them at an unimaginable speed. They were 2 rings of fire, and they emitted a shocking pressure. So hot! That's a 2nd-grade fire concept. Lu Ming's heart stirred, and 3 kinds of concepts burst out. A spear light burst out, striking the ring of fire. There was a deafening roar, and Lu Ming felt a boundless pressure surging toward him. His body shook slightly, and he could not help but retreat continuously. On the other side, Xian Yanqing was also in a similar situation, and he retreated a few steps. In the sky, a burly middle-aged man wearing a red robe stood in the void. His cold gaze swept over the 3 of them. My son, Yun Songsheng, was killed by you? Today, I'll bury you with him. A cold voice was heard. As soon as he finished his words, the burly man in red robes pressed his hands down. A total of 9 flame rings were launched at Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and Gu Huashu, respectively. At the same time, the sacred beetles trembled violently and flew toward the 3. Heavenly Demon Force Field. Destruction cut, Xian Yanqing shouted, and pressed out with both hands. A powerful force field covered a radius of 10 meters, and an invisible cutting force destroyed everything. This time, many sacred beetles were directly cut in half, and only 3 rings of fire were left, rampaging in the force field. This is the destruction concept. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Chapter 639. The destruction intent was a special intent. Its attack power was terrifying and could destroy everything. In terms of attack power, even the thunder intent was inferior to it. At the same time, Xian Yanqing had also comprehended the wind intent. However, the 2 intents were clearly not merged together. Die for me! At this moment, a long spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Ever since he obtained the infinite dragon spear, Lu Ming had not used it yet. Whoosh! Whoosh! The infinite dragon spear turned into a series of afterimages. Dozens of spear lights shot out. As the spear lights were too sharp, they tore open dozens of vacuum channels in the air. The spear lights pierced through dozens of sacred beetles, causing them to explode. The tip of the infinite dragon spear was made of indestructible steel. It was incomparably tough and sharp. It easily broke through the sacred beetle's defense. On the other side, Gu Huaxiu let out a long roar. Dark green sword qi burst out. It was also stronger than before and split the sacred beetles apart. Boom! Boom! Thereafter, there was a violent roar. Lu Ming and the group collided with the flaming ring, and there was a shocking explosion. The entire mountain peak shook violently. Damn it! The red-robed, middle-aged man's eyes were filled with shock. Lu Ming and the other two were too strong. Not only could they break through the sacred beetles, but they could also block his attack. They were only martial kings, but they were so terrifying. Overflowing flames destroy the world. The red-robed man waved his hands and pressed down. Immediately, dozens of rings of flames formed and shot towards the three. This flaming disk was the fusion of the red-robed man's true essence and concept. It was incomparably powerful, and the edges of the disk were incomparably sharp. It also contained the explosive power of flames. If a person was struck by it, they would definitely explode. Lu Ming, how about the three of us work together? Gu Huaxiu suddenly called out. The other party was a Sea of Soul Realm expert. Whether it was genuine or intent, they were both too strong. They would not be a match for him alone. If they wanted to leave this place safely, they could only work together. Otherwise, they would be defeated one by one. All right. Lu Ming was also very clear on this point. Without hesitation, he nodded and agreed. Regardless of whether Gu Huaxiu was possessed or not, he had to get through this first. Gu Huaxiu's figure flickered and appeared beside Lu Ming and the others like a ghost. Spiritual sea tier, Dantian turning into the sea, true essence is too dense. We can't fight him head-on, or else our true essence will definitely be exhausted. The opponent is a martial artist at the peak of the first layer of the spiritual sea tier. We can only take the initiative and counterattack to have a chance of winning. Gu Huaxiu quickly analyzed. What method do you have? Lu Ming asked. It was very likely that Gu Huaxiu had been possessed by a spiritual god. His knowledge was extraordinary. Perhaps he really had a way. While resisting the attacks of the red-robed man, they conversed with each other via voice transmission. The two of us will open up a path and attack the opponent. Let this girl use her force field to envelop the opponent and reduce his speed. Only then will we have a chance to win. Gu Huaxiu said, All right, let's lead the way. Lu Ming nodded, following which he activated his second bloodline, causing his strength to increase by several notches. Extreme Path Strike. Lu Ming used his most powerful strike, becoming one with his spear. He turned into a ray of spear light, piercing through the void and shooting up into the sky. Pum! Pum! Several rings were destroyed by Lu Ming, and the sharp spear light was aimed at the red-robed man. Azure Poison Sword. Gu Huaxiu's eyes flashed with a dense dark green light. Even the short sword in his hand turned dark green. He slashed out, and several rings were also destroyed. The dark green sword light slashed towards the red-robed man. The red-robed man's eyes turned serious. He clenched his fists, and the fire rings all flew back. They turned into two rings, emitting a powerful aura, and shot towards Lu Ming's spear light and dark green sword qi. Boom! Boom! Two earth-shattering explosions were heard as a violent force spread out in all directions. Two pillars of qi soared into the sky from where the three of them were fighting. Boom! The stone wall above the cave was directly pierced through. An entire mountain shook violently. Countless boulders fell. But when they were still a few dozen meters away from the four, they were shattered by the energy emitted from their bodies. Charge out! Lu Ming yelled at Xian Yanqing. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing turned into two streaks of light and charged out. On the other side, Gu Huaxiu did the same. Want to leave? Stay. The red-robed man let out an earth-shattering roar and turned into a sea of fire that shot towards the three. Sky Demon Force Field. Xian Yanqing pressed his small hand, and the Sky Demon Force Field acted on the red-robed man, stopping him for a moment. Just like that, Lu Ming and the other two charged out of the mountain. Stay here. The burly man in the red robe roared furiously. The next moment, the heavenly demon force field was shattered. He turned into a flame and dashed into the sky instantly. With a wave of his hand, dozens of flame rings blasted toward the trio. Lu Ming and the other two counterattacked, and explosions sounded like fireworks in the sky. As for the mountain peak below, it had completely collapsed. Damn it! Gu Huaxiu roared. The spiritual herb he wanted was still inside. What's going on? Something happened in the forbidden area. Such a huge commotion naturally alarmed the entire Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, and countless people flew in the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! More than 20 figures flew towards Lu Ming and the others. Old ancestor, what's going on? Old ancestor, what's going on? These people asked one after another. These people trespassed into the forbidden area. Everyone attack and take them down. The red-robed man ordered. What? How dare they? Courting death! These 20 people shouted and powerful auras erupted, surrounding Lu Ming and the other two. These 20 people were all kings in the Greater Success Stage, and they were the strongest force in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Kill them, the red-robed man ordered. Kill! Kill! More than 20 Greater Success Kings attacked at the same time, unleashing all kinds of secret techniques and lights toward the three. Die, brat! The red-robed man waved his hand, and everyone's attacks were directed at Gu Huaxiu. He wanted to take them down one by one. His attacks were too scattered, and that was why Lu Ming and the others were able to block them. Now he wanted to focus on one person. Gu Huaxiu was shocked, and he quickly retreated, and a dark green sword qi shot out. Die! The red-robed man pressed his hand down, and a ring of flame spun rapidly, colliding with the sword qi. The sword qi only resisted for a breath's time before collapsing, but the ring didn't stop and it continued forward. Clang! Gu Huaxiu's short sword struck the ring, and his body trembled, and he quickly retreated. No, I'm not a match for him alone. I need to work together. Gu Huaxiu ignored everything and rushed towards Lu Ming. Chapter 640. On the other side, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing were also entangled. Alchemists were proficient in inscriptions, so naturally they were also proficient in joint attacks. More than 20 kings joined hands and formed a joint attack formation, firmly entangling Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Lu Ming was clear about the other party's intention. They wanted to entangle the two of them first, while the red-robed man killed Gu Huaxiu. Then kill them one by one. If that was the case, they would be in danger. The red-robed man was not an ordinary Sea of Soul Realm expert who had just broken through, but had already reached the peak of the first layer of the Sea of Soul Realm. If they fought him alone, they would only be defeated. Charge out and join hands with Gu Huaxiu. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Xian Yanqing. Sky Demon Force Field, Destructive Cut. Xian Yanqing pressed his hands together, and the Sky Demon Force Field enveloped more than 20 kings. The destructive cutting power crazily cut at them. If it were just a few kings, they would have already been cut into meat paste. However, with more than 20 of them working together, their auras fused, and the formation resisted. Devour! Lu Ming pressed his left palm, and a powerful devouring power erupted, acting on the 20 kings, crazily devouring their blood essence. Steady! One of the old men shouted. This old man had the strength of a peak king. In fact, There were 8 peak kings among the 20 kings. Otherwise, they would not have been able to resist the joint attack of Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. True dragon attack, break for me! Lu Ming stabbed out with his long spear, and a tricolor true dragon flew out, crashing into the 20 kings. Block it, block it! Just a while more, and the old ancestor will be able to kill that person and come help us. An old man roared. They were also incomparably shocked. Where did these young men come from? They were simply too strong and did not seem like martial kings at all. They were too terrifying. At this moment, countless people in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution were looking at the battle in the sky, shocked. Whoosh! Just as Lu Ming used the True Dragon Strike, a sword light suddenly flashed from a mountain peak below. This sword light seemed to come from beyond the heavens, peerlessly sharp. The target of this sword light was the same as Lu Ming's. It was also the experts of the Cloud Sea Pill Institution. Boom! The tricolor True Dragon collided with the attacks of the people from the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. They had never expected that there would be another sword light. He wanted to defend himself, but he didn't have enough strength. Puff! Puff! As the sword light flashed, 7 or 8 kings at the greater success stage were sliced in half. The formation was broken. Once the formation was broken, Xian Yanqing's heavenly demonic force field erupted. Blood splattered everywhere as a few more experts were killed. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution is such a filthy and disgusting place. Today it shall be destroyed. A figure stepped out of the void and appeared in the air in an instant. This was a young man, about 25 or 26 years old. He was dressed in a white robe and was handsome and refined. Come and help me. On the other side, Gu Huaxu shouted. He could no longer hold on and was vomiting blood. He couldn't hold on for much longer. The 2 of you, I'll leave the rest to you. I'll go and help him. After saying that, the white-robed young man turned into a sword light and charged toward the red-robed man. Yun Luo, you old bastard, today will be the day you die. The white-robed young man's voice was filled with killing intent. Damn it, who are you? The red-robed man, who was Yun Luo, roared. I'm Li Xiaoyan, the Imperial Sky Divine Guard. I've been investigating what the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution has done for a long time. You shall be destroyed. The white-robed young man shouted coldly. Endless sword qi burst out from his hands. The white-robed young man's cultivation was also at the peak king level, but his combat strength was no weaker than Gu Huaxu and Xian Yanqing's. Li Xiaoyan, who is ranked 943 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Lu Ming's expression changed. Let's join forces and break out. At this moment, an old man trapped in the heavenly demon force field tried to break out. With the formation broken, their strength was greatly reduced. Now that a few of them had been killed by Xian Yanqing, there were only a dozen of them left. They tried to break out of the heavenly demon force field, but they could not break out at all. Now I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming stabbed out with his spear, and hundreds of tricolor true dragons flew out and pounced toward the dozen experts from the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. At the same time, the devouring power of the 9 dragons' bloodline shrouded them through his left palm. This was equivalent to Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing working together. Ordinary peak kings would not be able to resist and were killed one by one. Devour! Drops of blood essence flew into Lu Ming's left palm and were devoured by the 9 dragons' bloodline. Xian Yanqing looked at Lu Ming curiously. He did not know why Lu Ming would devour the blood essence. Now let's go and kill that old man. Lu Ming smiled but did not explain. He could not explain the 9 dragons' bloodline for now. As for the 20 overstorage rings, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing kept all of them. Okay. Xian Yanqing nodded. Meanwhile, the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was in an uproar. The strongest group of elders of the Cloud Sea Pill Institution were all dead. All of them had been killed. Those who knew Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing were even more shocked. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing are not on the list of top 1,000 talents. How can they be so strong? Even peak kings can't fight back against them. The most terrifying one is Gu Huaxiu. He's so strong that he didn't die under the patriarch's attack. A great era is coming. I heard that in recent years, geniuses have been emerging all over the eastern wilderness. Many of them are not weaker than those on the list of top 1,000 talents. It's over. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution has been targeted by these monsters. Let's go. Some of the people who were studying alchemy retreated far away to avoid being implicated. Some of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution disciples also retreated to a secluded place to watch. If something went wrong, they would leave immediately. At the same time, Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing had already charged toward Yun Luo. Gu Huaxiu and Li Xiaoyan were still no match for Yun Luo, but they could still fend her off. Sky Demon Force Field. Before Xian Yinqing arrived, the Sky Demon Force Field had already enveloped Yun Luo. True Dragon Strike. The dazzling spear radiance turned into a 3-color dragon and charged toward Yun Luo. At the same time, Gu Huaxiu and Li Xiaoyan counterattacked. Boom! Boom! Yun Luo's body shook violently as she retreated. Whoosh! Whoosh! Li Xiaoyan and Gu Huaxiu moved and blocked Yun Luo's path. The 4 of them surrounded Yun Luo. Hee, let's see how arrogant you are now. Gu Huaxiu sneered. Yun Luo, I've already investigated what the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution has done. From today onwards, the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution will be removed from the world. Li Xiaoyan's voice was extremely cold. Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing did not speak, but their cold eyes said it all. Countless people were shocked. The 4 geniuses were going to kill a spiritual sea realm expert today. Moreover, Yun Luo was a peak first-tier spiritual sea realm expert. If she was killed, it would be a huge piece of news. It was rare for a king realm expert to kill a spiritual sea realm expert because the gap between a king realm expert and a spiritual sea realm expert was too large. Chapter 641. Do you really think that you can kill me? Yun Luo's aura surged as he scanned his surroundings. However, his heart was heavy. The 4 people before him were too strong, surpassing common sense. Ordinary peak kings would only be instantly killed in front of them. If he was alone, he was confident that he could defeat and kill them. However, he felt pressured by the 4 of them working together. Especially he looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was only a peak 9th level martial king, but he was already so powerful. The Battle of Providence is about to begin. These monsters have all made their move. Yun Luo felt bitter. Although it's rare for a king to kill a spiritual sea realm cultivator, it's not unheard of in history. Gu Huaxiu smirked and licked his lips. Kill! Lu Ming did not waste his breath and simply made a move. He had devoured a large amount of blood essence, so he had to end the battle as soon as possible to refine the blood essence. As soon as Lu Ming moved, the other 3 moved as well. They all used their ultimate techniques and charged toward Yun Luo. The sky suddenly boiled as the violent attacks shook the world. Strands of energy flowed out and fell to the ground. Boom! Boom! Each strand of energy was like a heavy bomb, causing mountains and rivers to explode and palaces to collapse. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was in a mess. Run! Run! The disciples of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution screamed as they ran. Those who were too slow were killed by the explosions. 5 figures turned into 5 rays of light and engaged in a life-and-death battle in the sky. However, Yun Luo was already at a disadvantage. A moment later, blood splattered everywhere as one of his arms was chopped off. Yun Luo let out a beast-like roar. Suddenly, a bloody light filled the air as Yun Luo turned into a ray of bloody light and charged out of the encirclement. "You 4 little bastards, just you wait. I will avenge my lost arm." Yun Luo's voice echoed in the sky, but he was already far away. Yun Luo had escaped. It's a pity that he got away. Li Xiaoyan sighed. Lu Ming's expression was calm. The 4 of them didn't have an overwhelming advantage against Yun Luo in the first place. How could it be so easy to kill her? Being able to leave behind an arm and injure her vitality was already pretty good. If the other party doesn't die, he will definitely seek revenge. "I won't accompany you." Gu Huashu sneered. He glanced at Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing before his figure flashed and vanished into the horizon. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. This guy was really cautious. Once the battle ended, he immediately left. He was most likely afraid that Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing would find trouble with him. To be honest, Lu Ming did not mind getting rid of him if he had the chance. Gu Huashu gave Lu Ming a very dangerous feeling. "May I know how I should address you too?" Li Xiaoyan cupped his fists at Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing and smiled. "Lu Ming." "Xian Yinqing." Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing replied. "Lu Ming? Xian Yinqing? I've never heard of him. It seems that we've entered a golden age with endless geniuses. If the list of top 1,000 talents is rearranged now, I wonder if I'll be kicked out of it." Li Xiaoyan smiled bitterly. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing looked to be in their 20s, but their cultivation and combat strength shocked him. "Brotherly, you're too modest. I've heard of your name before," Lu Ming said politely. "What do you two plan to do next? Are you going to the chaotic astral sea as well?" Li Xiaoyun asked curiously. "That's right," Lu Ming nodded. There was no need to hide it. The Battle of Providence is approaching, and many geniuses have been mobilized. As far as I know, many geniuses have entered the chaotic astral sea recently to train themselves. After I've settled the matter of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, I plan to explore the chaotic astral sea as well," Li Xiaoyan said with a smile. "Oh," Lu Ming nodded. Indeed, the chaotic astral sea was extremely chaotic. It was an unreasonable place where one could be attacked at any time. There was no shortage of life and death battles there. In such an environment, one could indeed improve and break through one's limits. If one did not break through, one would probably die. It was normal for many geniuses to enter the chaotic astral sea to train themselves. Lu Ming could not help but look forward to it. Li Xiaoyan was ranked 943 on the list of top 1,000 talents, dozens of places higher than Shengxing. His combat strength was much stronger than Shengxing's. Li Xiaoyan could easily defeat Shengxing. He was only dozens of places higher than Shengxing, but he was already so powerful. How powerful would the geniuses who were ranked higher be? Not to mention the geniuses who had entered the Sea of Soul realm. There must be many geniuses who were stronger than Li Xiaoyun in the Martial King realm. Lu Ming was eager to meet them. "Brotherly, we'll take our leave then," Lu Ming said. He was in a hurry to find a place to refine the blood essence. "All right, we'll have a drink when we meet again," Li Xiaoyan said with a smile. "Definitely." Lu Ming nodded and then left with Xian Yinqing. Whoosh! Whoosh! After Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing left, 2 figures appeared beside Li Xiaoyun and bowed. "Young master, send the news to the Emperor's Sky Divine Palace in the Yunfeng domain. Get someone to deal with the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Using innate blood essence to refine elixirs is an evil practice." Li Xiaoyan said coldly. "Yes." The 2 old men bowed. Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing flew toward the west. After flying for hundreds of thousands of miles, they landed on a mountain. The 2 of them planned to cultivate in seclusion here for a while. Xian Yinqing wanted to use the heavenly demon fruit to cultivate the heavenly demon force field. Lu Ming also wanted to refine the blood essence. "Dandan, protect us," Lu Ming said. 10 rank 5 spiritual herbs. Dandan demanded an exorbitant price. Lu Ming threw 2 spiritual herbs to him and said, 2 spiritual herbs. Otherwise none. Dandan had no choice but to grab 2 spiritual herbs and protect them. Xie Nianqing sat cross-legged and took out the heavenly demon fruit to cultivate. Lu Ming sat cross-legged 100 meters away. Rumble. Within the 9-dragon bloodline, the massive blood essence was being refined continuously. This time, there were more than 20 blood essences of greater success kings, including 8 peak-tier kings. The blood essence was simply too dense. The 9 dragons bloodline had already reached the limit of a rank 7 monarch bloodline. This time it broke through. 8 silver chakras flashed, and the 9 dragons bloodline reached rank 8 monarch bloodline. Luckily, Xian Yinqing was also in seclusion. Otherwise, his jaw would have dropped. 9 dragons bloodline. 9 dragons. Why does it sound so familiar? Sigh, I can't remember. Dandan muttered as he chewed on a spiritual herb. Let's see if there are enough supreme-grade spiritual crystals. If there are enough, I can become a peak-tier king. A dozen interspatial rings appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Lu Min and Xian Yanqing each took 12 interspatial rings of the greater success kings of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Lu Ming sank his consciousness into the interspatial rings and gathered all the supreme-grade spiritual crystals together. Chapter 642. As expected of the storage rings of kings at the Great Success Stage and Peak Kings, they were simply too rich. In total, there were more than 80 million supreme spiritual crystals in the 12 storage rings. 80 million peak-grade spiritual crystals was truly terrifying. Alchemy is truly profitable. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. Moreover, the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution use the blood qi of infants to refine pills. Naturally, they would be able to earn more peak-grade spiritual crystals. Even peak kings and great success kings weren't that rich. Lu Ming estimated that Yun Luo storage ring would definitely have more peak-grade spiritual crystals. It was a pity that Yun Luo had escaped. It's more than enough to become a peak king. After Lu Ming sorted out the peak-grade spiritual crystals, he looked at Xian Yinqing. At this moment, an invisible force field spread out from Xian Yinqing's body, covering an area of 100 meters. It was constantly vibrating and contracting. Xie Nianqing held the heavenly demon fruit in his hand. The heavenly demon fruit shone brightly and was absorbed by Xian Yinqing. It seemed that Xian Yinqing's cultivation wouldn't end anytime soon. With a thought, Lu Ming's body disappeared and entered the Temple of Paragon. His breakthrough would cause quite a commotion. If he was outside, it would most likely alert Xian Yinqing. Let's begin. With a wave of his hand, a huge pile of peak-grade spiritual crystals appeared. There were at least 1 million of them. Pum! Pum! The 1 million peak-grade spiritual crystals exploded and turned into dense heaven and earth spiritual qi. The 9 dragons' bloodline appeared. The 9 dragons' bloodline had reached the 8th level king grade. Its body seemed to have grown larger, and its scales were dense. It looked more and more like the legendary true dragons. Opening its mouth, a terrifying devouring power erupted. The energy of the 1 million peak-grade spiritual crystals was sucked into the 9 dragons' bloodline. Lu Ming circulated the true dragon battle technique and started cultivating. Breaking through to the peak king grade required a lot of energy. Furthermore, he had to condense his cyclone to the extreme in preparation for breaking through to the Sea of Soul Realm. Therefore, a lot of supreme spiritual crystals were needed. The devouring and refining power of the 9 dragons' bloodline increased several times. It didn't take long for the 1 million supreme grade spiritual crystals to be refined. Lu Ming took out another 1 million. Just like that, 1 million after another. Endless energy was accumulating. When Lu Ming had refined 18 million pieces of supreme spiritual crystals, the cyclone in his dantian had finally become extremely condensed. It was like a rotating liquid, like the eye of the sea. At this moment, a powerful aura rose from Lu Ming's body. He had broken through to the Peak King realm. Rumble. Circulating the true battle dragon art, his true essence surged. Lu Ming felt that the strength of his true essence was several times stronger than before, and Lu Ming's battle strength had naturally increased by a large margin. Lu Ming opened his eyes and revealed a satisfied smile. Peak King warriors were considered to be standing at the peak of King warriors. The next step would be to open up the spirit ocean and step into the Sea of Souls realm. However, this step wasn't that easy. First, he had to comprehend the intent of heaven and earth to the second level. Without the second level intent of heaven and earth, only death would await him if he tried to break through to the Sea of Souls realm. Only a little more than a day has passed after refining so many supreme-grade spiritual crystals. Let's go see how Shao Qing's cultivation is going. With a thought, Lu Ming left the Temple of Paragon. Wang. As soon as Lu Ming appeared, he felt a powerful force field surging. He felt a huge pressure on his body. Lu Ming moved and retreated a few hundred meters before the pressure disappeared. The heavenly demon fruit in Xian Yanqing's hand had already disappeared. Her long hair fluttered in the wind as a lotus floated above her head. A beautiful woman sat cross-legged on the lotus. Powerful force fields constantly emanated from Xia Nianqing's body. Not simple. Dandan circled around Xian Yanqing, its eyes darting around as it sized up Xian Yanqing. 8 hours later, the force field around Xian Yanqing suddenly shrank and disappeared from her body. At this moment, Xia Nianqing opened her eyes. Shao Qing, how is it? Did you break through the heavenly demon force field? Lu Ming walked over and smiled. Of course. How was it? Do you want to test its power? There was a sly smile at the corners of Xia Nianqing's lips. He stared at Lu Ming with evil intentions. Do you think you can defeat me just because you broke through? You'll be disappointed again. Lu Ming smiled confidently. Is that so? Then I'll give it a try. Xia Nianqing smiled. As soon as she finished speaking, she pressed her palms forward. Buzz! An incomparably powerful force field erupted and instantly enveloped Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt as if there was a majestic mountain pressing down on him. So strong. It's several times stronger than before. Lu Ming's eyes revealed a trace of amazement. Boom! In the next moment, a powerful aura erupted from Lu Ming's body. He circulated his true essence and combined the 3 essences of heaven and earth to expand the power of the heavenly demon force field. You've broken through in your cultivation, Xia Nianqing exclaimed in surprise. Of course. You've broken through, so how can I not? Lu Ming chuckled. Just in time. Destruction cut. Xia Nianqing shouted and pressed her palms together. A terrifying cutting power erupted from the heavenly demon force field. This cutting power was formed from the concept of destruction and the heavenly demon force field. It was incomparably sharp. Even a level 5 spiritual weapon would be cut apart. Lu Ming condensed a long spear with true essence in his hand. With the tip as the center, the long spear spun rapidly like a drill and drilled in Xian Yanqing's direction. Bang! Bang! With a rumble, the domain in front of him was broken. Lu Ming stepped forward and avoided Xia Nianqing's attack. If he wanted to defeat Xian Yanqing, he would first have to rush out of this domain and kill his way to Xian Yanqing. Little Qing, after I take him down, I'll have to reward you. Lu Ming's gaze swept over Xia Nianqing's body. You want to take me down? Dream on. Xian Yinqing shouted, and her bloodline erupted. Her slender, jade-like hands pressed down again. A beautiful arm formed out of thin air and slapped down at Lu Ming. The terrifying palm energy swept towards Lu Ming like raging waves. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He didn't dare to be careless. He stabbed out with his spear, and a huge tricolor true dragon rushed out and collided with the beautiful palm. Boom! The earth trembled horribly. The terrain rose and fell. Violent energy swept in all directions. Lu Ming's body shook slightly, and he took 3 steps back. Xian Yinqing, on the other hand, took 3 steps back. They were evenly matched. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He was about to erupt his bloodline and fight with Xian Yinqing. Xian Yinqing withdrew her heavenly demon force field and said, "Stop, stop! Today's a draw." "Stop?" Lu Ming was a little speechless. Putting everything else aside, Xian Yinqing was a good opponent. Lu Ming wanted to erupt his bloodline and fight with all his strength, but Xian Yinqing stopped. "Humph, you're a big man. Why are you so serious when fighting with a little girl like me? How petty. Who wants to fight with you?" Chapter 643. Lu Ming gave a wry smile. All right, it was Xian Yinqing who said he wanted to have a competition. Now, it was Lu Ming who was in the wrong. What could Lu Ming say? He could only tell himself that he should never try to reason with a woman, because his reason might not be hers. With a faint smile, Xian Yinqing's figure flashed as he grabbed Dandan and placed her on his shoulder. Then he rose into the air and flew toward the west. Lu Ming walked in the air and chased after her. The chaotic astral ocean was not close from here. It was almost half the distance of the Yunfeng territory. Even with their speed, it would take them almost 10 days to fly there. Little Qing, you cultivate the destruction mentality and the wind mentality, right? On the way, Lu Ming asked. Yes, I comprehended the destruction mentality from my bloodline. Xian Yinqing said, those 2 mentalities don't seem to merge together. Do you think it's that easy to merge 2 mentalities? Xian Yinqing rolled her eyes at Lu Ming. Then she thought of something and said, not like you. You're so abnormal. I can teach you some experience of merging mentalities. How about it? Do you want to learn? Lu Ming said with a smile. Xian Yinqing's eyes brightened. Indeed, Lu Ming had successfully merged 3 mentalities. If she had Lu Ming's experience, she might really be able to merge 2 mentalities. If she could really merge the destruction mentality and the wind mentality, her heavenly demon force field would be enhanced to a terrifying level. Are you so kind that you'll teach me? Xian Yinqing asked tentatively. Of course not. I have a condition. Come, kiss me. I'll tell you how to merge them. Lu Ming said with a smile. Kiss you? Xian Yinqing's face was as red as a ripe apple. She glared fiercely at Lu Ming and said, I knew it. You're a pervert. You wish. Then she clenched her teeth. Well, then forget it. I can't help it. Who told me to be a pervert? Lu Ming gave a long sigh. You. Xian Yinqing clenched her teeth. Her eyes kept changing. Then she stared at Lu Ming with her face getting redder and redder. Finally, she actually approached him, closed her eyes, and kissed Lu Ming's face. Lu Ming's figure flashed and moved a few meters away, and laughed. Little Qing, what are you doing? It's just a joke. Did you take it? Ha! A scream came out of Xian Yinqing's mouth. Xian Yinqing blushed and glared at Lu Ming fiercely. She clenched her teeth and wanted to bite Lu Ming. In the end, she bared her teeth and pounced on Lu Ming to bite him. Lu Ming dodged and flew forward. He shouted, Nest, the tigress is biting. Stop. No, I won't stop. The 2 of them disappeared into the sky, one chasing and one escaping. Days passed. On the way, Lu Ming occasionally teased Xian Yinqing. He was in a good mood. Of course, he wouldn't be stingy. He shared his experience with Xian Yinqing. In addition, he took out a lot of destruction profound crystals for Xianyanqing. The destruction profound crystals were also one of the many destruction profound crystals that Lu Ming had obtained in the heaven realm. When Xianyanqing saw Lu Ming take out a lot of destruction profound crystals, and there were even many middle grade destruction profound crystals, she couldn't help but be flabbergasted. Of course, she put them away without hesitation. Then she took out a martial skill book and gave it to Lu Ming. The exploding star fist was a heaven-grade, upper-grade martial skill. Combined with the fire concept, it could erupt with a terrifying power like the explosion of a star. Lu Ming was overjoyed. His current attack methods were indeed a little monotonous. With this exploding star fist, his attack methods would be a little more varied. He had obtained some martial skill books from others before, but they were all heaven, grade, lower grade. Lu Ming didn't care about them at all. Most of them needed to be used with weapons to cultivate. They weren't suitable for Lu Ming. This martial skill book was just right for Lu Ming. The two of them weren't in a hurry to travel. They cultivated as they traveled. If they had comprehended something, they would stop and cultivate for a while. Lu Ming's comprehension of the exploding star fist was also improving rapidly. The two of them flew for more than 20 days before arriving at the destination that was supposed to take 10 days. The random star city was located on the shore of the chaotic astral ocean. It could be considered as the border between the Cloud Peak domain and the chaotic astral ocean. The random star city could be said to be the most prosperous city in the Cloud Peak domain. Everyone who wanted to enter the chaotic astral ocean from the Cloud Peak domain had to pass through the random star city. Countless merchant associations and caravans gathered here. The chaotic astral ocean could be said to be the largest inland sea in the eastern wilderness. Its area was larger than many large domains. There were many precious materials and strange treasures that couldn't be found in the outside world. Therefore, countless merchant associations took the risk to enter the chaotic astral ocean to search for materials and treasures unique to the chaotic astral ocean and transport them to other large domains to sell. They could earn huge profits, and these merchant associations all had to set out from the random star city. It's really lively. Lu Ming and Xianyanqing walked to the streets of the random star city. Looking at the endless stream of people coming and going, Lu Ming couldn't help but sigh. On both sides of the street there were many shops. Inside there were all kinds of wonderful materials and items from the sea. Lu Ming had never seen them before. It was a great eye-opener. After walking around, the two of them headed for the harbor outside the city. The so-called harbor of the random star city wasn't a place to dock ships, but a place to dock flying demonic beasts. This was because there were many aquatic demonic beasts living in the chaotic astral ocean. These aquatic demonic beasts were extremely powerful in the sea. They could overturn the clouds and rain. Ships sailing on the sea would definitely be defeated by the demonic beasts in the sea. Therefore, most people who entered the chaotic astral ocean rode on flying demonic beasts. Of course, riding on flying demonic beasts wasn't completely without danger. In the chaotic astral ocean, the weather was unpredictable. They might encounter a storm or thunderstorm at any time. As for the storms and thunderstorms, they were no ordinary storms and thunderstorms. Some of them were so terrifying that even kings would die within them. Also, the biggest danger in the chaotic astral ocean was pirates. Pirates were everywhere, robbing passers-by. The only outcome for those who were robbed was death. Therefore, all the warriors who wanted to enter the chaotic astral ocean would enter in groups. The most common way was to follow some caravans. The caravans themselves would have powerful forces, and they would also hire some guards with high cultivation. Therefore, as long as the caravans were given some spirit crystals, they would agree to go together. The benefits were mutual. One side could get the protection of the caravan's forces, and the other side, the more people there were in the caravans, the stronger the deterrence. Mutual benefits. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing also wanted to find a caravan to go together. They weren't afraid of the pirates in the chaotic astral ocean, but because the chaotic astral ocean was too big, if no one led the way, it would be very easy to get lost. Chapter 644. The port of Random Star City was bustling with noise and excitement. Huge flying beasts were parked there. There were winged eagles, gale eagles, four-winged flying tigers, and so on. All kinds of flying beasts had one thing in common, which was great endurance and huge size. Each demonic beast could carry at least a few dozen people. These demonic beasts were not all standing together. Instead, they were clearly divided into different factions. Lu Yuan Chamber of Commerce is going to Feng Yuan Island. Is there anyone who wants to go with us? Only 10,000 supreme spiritual crystals per person. Flame Chamber of Commerce is going to Jinsha Island. Let's go together. 12,000 supreme spiritual crystals per person. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce is calling for guards to go to Sea Lion Island. The price is set according to cultivation. Let's talk face to face. When the two arrived at the port, they heard shouts. Which island should we go to first? Xian Yinqing asked. Anything is fine. Let's choose a bigger island. Lu Ming said. The map shown by the Martial Emperor's treasure only pointed to the chaotic astral ocean, but it did not point to the specific location of the chaotic astral ocean. The two guessed that it would only point to the specific location when all 9 keys appeared. Therefore, they did not have a specific target and could only choose a random place. Then, let's go to Jinsha Island. Jinsha Island is a big island with many martial artists gathered there. Xia Nianqing said. Okay. Lu Ming nodded, and then the two walked in the direction of the Flame Chamber of Commerce. You too, are you going to Jinsha Island? A middle-aged man with a goatee asked with a smile. Yes. Lu Ming nodded. Go to Jinsha Island. 12,000 supreme spiritual crystals per person. Our young lady is there. You can go there to sign up and pay. The middle-aged man with a goatee pointed. The two looked over and saw a young woman surrounded by a group of people standing under a huge, four-winged flying tiger. Okay, thank you. Lu Ming cupped his fists and walked over with Xian Yinqing. Are you two going to Jinsha Island? The woman looked at Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing and smiled. The woman was in her 20s. She wore a light yellow long dress, which made her look delicate and pretty. This was the young lady that the goatee spoke of. Yes, this is the fee for both of us. Lu Ming took out 24,000 top-grade spiritual crystals and gave them to the young woman. The woman put it away and smiled. My name is Lu Oxen. How should I address you? Lu Ming. Xian Yinqing. Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing also introduced themselves. Mr. Lu, Ms. Xia, the journey to Jinsha Island will take half a month. You can choose a four-winged flying tiger first. We will depart in 2 hours. Luo Xian smiled. All right, Lu Ming nodded. Then he and Xian Yinqing chose a four-winged flying tiger. This four-winged flying tiger was 20 meters tall and had a wide back. It was lying on the ground. There were already a few people sitting cross-legged on the back of the four-winged flying tiger. The two of them moved and landed on the back of the four-winged flying tiger. They sat cross-legged and waited quietly. As soon as Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing left, a cold-looking young man beside Luo Xan said, 2 more useless people. There is not a single expert on this trip to Jinsha Island. How unlucky. Chun Zhao, this is normal. We don't have experts with us every time. We are a caravan, so we have to rely more on ourselves, Luo Xan said. I know. Of course, I know that. However, if there are experts with us, we will be able to reduce the number of casualties if we encounter danger. The others nodded. That was indeed the case. Their caravan had brought people with them for 2 reasons. First, they could earn some money. Second, they wanted to borrow some strength. If they encountered danger along the way, they would lend a helping hand. If there were a few experts with them, it would be much safer. While they were chatting, more people came over. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. The people of the flame caravan, as well as the guards, were all on the back of the four-winged flying tiger. "Let's go," Luo Exayan shouted. The four-winged flying tiger roared and soared into the sky, flying toward the chaotic astral ocean. Lu Ming glanced over. There were 64 winged flying tigers. There were about 20 people on each of them. In total, there were more than 1,000 people. Most of them were from the flame caravan. There were about 200 of them, like Lu Ming and the others, who were following the caravan to Jinsha Island. There was nothing but people on the back of the four-winged flying tiger. People would not carry goods. Martial artists were different from mortal caravans. Mortal caravans had to carry a large amount of goods. Martial artists' goods were all stored in their storage rings. The four-winged flying tiger roared as it flew. It had 4 huge fleshy wings that were more than 50 meters wide. With a flap of its wings, a gust of wind swept up. The 60 huge four-winged flying tigers flew a few thousand meters in the air and formed a formation. A white-robed old man stood on the foremost four-winged flying tiger, looking into the distance. This old man was the guide of the caravan. Not only could he tell the direction, but he could also avoid thunderstorms and storms. He could see them from afar and could always take a detour to avoid them. This was a guide that every caravan had. It was also called a wind guide. A wind guide was the most valuable asset of every caravan. It could help the caravan avoid many dangers. The salty sea breeze blew, and Lu Ming felt refreshed. This is the real sea. Lu Ming stood on the back of the four-winged flying tiger and looked into the distance. The blue sea was boundless, and one couldn't see the end of it. It was as if it was connected to the sky. The surface of the sea was very calm. It was completely different from the sea that Lu Ming saw in the heavenly realm. After looking for a while, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged. The journey to Golden Sand Island would take half a month. During this time, he could cultivate properly. He sank his consciousness into his sea of consciousness and sat cross-legged under the lightning cauldron to comprehend the state of thunder. A few hours later, Lu Ming finished comprehending the state of thunder. He started to deduce the exploding star fist in his mind. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Splash! The sound of waves crashing came from below. At the same time, cries could be heard. When Lu Ming looked down, he was slightly startled. Large fish appeared on the surface of the sea below. These large fish were all black. Lu Ming estimated that each of them was about 100 meters long. There were more than 100 of them in total. They rolled in the sea and let out sharp cries. Now that he was in the deep sea, the number of sea demonic beasts gradually increased. Splash! Suddenly, a large part of the seawater caved in, revealing rows of sharp teeth. A large black fish was caught off guard and was directly bitten in half by the sharp teeth. A massive shark leapt out of the water, giving off a monstrous aura. What a huge shark! Lu Ming estimated that this shark was at least 1,000 meters long. It was incomparably huge and looked like a small island in the sea. Chapter 645. The huge sharks chased after each other, dyeing the ocean red. Just at this moment, 2 large furry hands stretched out of the sea. These 2 hands were incomparably huge, and their palms were nearly 100 meters wide. They grabbed the shark's mouth and forcefully pulled. The shark's mouth was directly split in half, and even its body was almost torn apart, causing blood to spurt out. An incomparably huge ape emerged from the sea, opened its big mouth full of teeth, bit the shark, and tore off a large piece of shark meat from the shark. It's a water ape. It's so powerful. It's at least as powerful as a Peak King. Not good. It's targeting us. someone exclaimed. At this moment, the water ape's huge eyes looked up at the sky, filled with a violent aura. But fortunately, it only glanced at the shark's body for a while before slowly sinking into the ocean and disappearing. The demonic beasts in the ocean are really powerful. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. The most amazing thing was that the demon beasts in the sea were too huge. They were easily a few hundred meters long, or even 1,000 meters long. On land, it was rare to see such a huge body, unless it was a powerful demon beast that had inherited the bloodline of a divine beast. In the sea, the law of the jungle was displayed even more vividly. Continuing to fly, Lu Ming saw even more huge and powerful demonic beasts along the way. Once they met a demonic beast that looked like a dragon. It was 2,000 meters long and had a boundless aura. It was definitely equivalent to a Sea of Soul realm demonic beast. Fortunately, they went around it. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. No wonder it was said that ships couldn't move forward in the chaotic astral ocean. They would definitely be torn apart by these huge demonic beasts. 5 days later, there's a thunderstorm ahead. Turn around and head right. Feng Xiangshi yelled from the first four-winged sky tiger. The flame caravan immediately turned around and flew to the right. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Lu Ming focused on comprehending the thunder intent and exploding star fist. The rest of the time, he cultivated spirit fire. Adding the time before, Lu Ming had already cultivated exploding star fist to the 2nd level. Its power was already not bad. After all, he lacked practice and couldn't take out the enlightenment ancient tree to cultivate, so his cultivation speed was naturally not fast. Whong, buzz. On the evening of the 8th day, a series of buzzing sounds suddenly came from the front. The sound was rapidly approaching. Not good, it's flying arrowfish. A school of flying arrowfish. A loud roar reverberated throughout all the four-winged flying sky tigers. Get ready for battle. Just as he finished speaking, a resplendent attack burst forth from the front. Lu Ming's four-winged flying tiger was at the back of the formation. For the time being, it was not attacked. He looked forward. The sky in front of them was densely packed. It was a type of fish with wings. It was about 1/2 meter long and had a sharp mouth like an arrow. Whoosh! Whoosh! This kind of fish was the flying arrowfish. With a flap of their wings, their bodies shot out like arrows, piercing through the air and making tearing sounds. Most of these fish were only equivalent to the martial arts grandmaster level, but there were too many of them. A small number of them had reached the level of martial king. Boom! Boom! Multicolored attacks flashed out, and large swaths of flying arrowfish were killed, falling into the sea like raindrops. Everyone attack! Kill these flying arrowfish and leave this place at once. Chen Zhao floated in the air and uttered a roar. With a single slap, over 1,000 flying arrowfish were killed, displaying his strength of the 7th layer martial emperor realm. Lu Ming shook his head and did not interfere. Although there were a lot of flying arrowfish, their strength was not strong enough to cause any harm to the merchant group. Thus there was no need for him to interfere. Beside him, Xian Yinqing had no intention of interfering either, and continued to sit with his legs crossed. As expected, the school of flying arrowfish was almost wiped out in a short while, allowing the merchant group to leave the place and continue flying forward. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a figure appeared before Lu Ming and the others. It was Chen Zhao. At that instant, Chen Zhao's icy face became even colder. He stared at Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing and said, "Why didn't you two interfere just then?" His tone was extremely unfriendly, as if he was questioning them. Lu Ming frowned. He did not like it when others spoke to him in such a tone. Therefore, he was naturally unhappy. He said calmly, "It's just some flying swordfish. We don't have to do anything. When the time comes, we will naturally do it." "Haha, no need for you to interfere? How ridiculous! Do you think you're peerless experts? How ridiculous! I think you don't even dare to interfere. You're just a coward. Qin Zhao burst out laughing with a mocking look. Xian Yinqing's eyes flickered coldly. Lu Ming frowned and said in a cold tone, "It's none of your business whether we're experts or not. Besides, we've paid chi crystals for this trip. I've never heard of any rule stating that we're required to interfere." "You!" Qin Zhao's expression stiffened. It was true that there was no rule stating that they were required to participate in the journey after paying chi crystals. As a matter of fact, people like Lu Ming and his crew were not required to interfere. However, most people would interfere when they were in danger, just so the merchant group could reach their destination as soon as possible. "Qin Zhao, that's enough." At this moment, Luo Exan flew over and chided. Then, she smiled at Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing. "Young Master Lu, Miss Xie, Qin Zhao is a little hot-tempered. I hope you don't mind him." Xian Yinqing snorted coldly. Lu Ming smiled faintly and did not say anything. "You're weak and you're a coward. Just say so." Qin Zhao coldly left behind these words, then left and flew off into the distance. "Young Master Lu, Miss Xie, I'm sorry." Luo Exan smiled apologetically and left as well. "What a snob." Xian Yinqing curled his lips. Lu Ming smiled faintly and rubbed his nose. It was not that they did not want to interfere, but he had already seen that the flying arrow fish did not pose a threat to the merchant group. It did not matter whether they interfered or not. That was why they did not interfere. If the merchant group was in danger, they would not sit back and do nothing. The small incident was over just like that. The merchant group continued on their journey. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. On the evening of the 10th day, a small island appeared in front of them. "The Zhongyi Island is up ahead. Let's go down and rest for the night. We'll continue tomorrow." Luo Exion's voice was heard. The four-winged flying tiger had been flying for 10 days. No matter how strong its stamina was, it was tired and needed rest. It could not travel continuously. The four-winged flying tiger roared and flew toward the island below. The island was not big. It had a radius of about 1,000 miles. It was originally a place for merchant groups to rest midway. They landed on a huge square on the island. "Shopkeeper Yen, the Flame Trade Union is here. Prepare some good food for us." A burly man flew down from the Flame Trade Union and shouted. Huge stone houses were built on the side of the square. In the past, the merchant groups that passed by would rest there and have some food. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.